I'm sitting there having my coffee. I started watching this video. I've watched one video of this guy, and I've watched 3 minutes and 20 seconds of this video, and it was weird. The first part, let's see, this is at 3 minutes and 20 seconds. But it's really weird. Just a few days ago, I recorded something on my tape recorder that is very similar to what this guy said here. Let me go back, see if I can find it. He was using the words of somebody, but I had just recorded on my tape recorder at work something very similar to these words, so it was kind of interesting. But that's how God always works. It seems like God always knows where I'm going to go and what I'm going to listen to. So he gives me information before I ever get there that I already know, that's similar. But let me see if I can find what he said. He was quoting somebody's words. I don't even know who it was. Let me see if I can find it.
Throughout the dinner table, our story.
Here's he was quoting somebody. I don't know who it was. It says, "Who are we but the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves and believe?" See, this is way more powerful than what most people realize. And I just recorded a video, and I haven't watched this is the first time I've seen this video, but I just recorded a video very similar to this, and just a few days ago. Let me show you the video that I recorded a few days ago, which even talks about this very thing. And it was done by an artist named let's see if I can find my video real quick. And that video. I need to find my video and that video. Okay, let's go to YouTube on both these. Let me go to my history. I just recorded this video. Was it yesterday or the day before? Okay, there's my video right here. Trapped in a mirror for a year. I just recorded this video.
They continue on their true path.
Clear goal.
It was about this artist right here. See, this artist right here, Jesus came to her and gave her a gift to draw. And so basically she was struggling to make this drawing of herself, and she was trying to capture the real her. I'll see if I can find an image of what she actually drew. She painstakingly for a year tried to capture the real her, which is kind of the image of what this guy's talking about here. Who are we but the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves and believe? See, Jesus talks about these types of things. I don't know if I want to give away too many secrets, but I just put this on my wall not too long ago. See, this is what controls us. Let me show something here. I just put this on my wall about, I don't know, a few weeks ago. What's competing for your attention? See, why is that important? You know, Facebook and some of these big companies, they want to know what you're going to focus on, right? Because that represents where you're going to spend your time and your money and your energy and what you're drawn to. Because there's another thing that Jesus said was this. to one of the disciples. Jesus said, "What seek ye?" Then I added to that, "What should you seek?" Because there's a big difference in what you should seek and what you actually seek versus what you should seek. One of my things that God has been speaking to me for a couple of years now, and I really haven't even begun to manifest it or do it, because once again, I got this on my wall. Stupid is what stupid does. You see, it doesn't matter how much you know in life. It matters what you actually do, because what you do is called reality, right? So it doesn't, in the Bible, the Bible explains a lot of mysteries that people don't have a clue on that could make them millions of dollars, and I hate even saying that, because I got about 100 books I'm going to be working on as soon as I draw like 7,000 books. I'm going to retire and start working on some books. So I haven't even written one book yet. But in the Bible, I don't want to give away too many secrets, but see, God is on a level that just blows away anybody. Some of these things, like what Facebook is realizing, they're starting to realize the stuff that God and Jesus already talked about in the Bible, but they don't see it, right? It's just like when the wise men came, they saw the star, but all of Israel didn't. Because this stuff that God talks about is so much farther over the people's heads that they don't realize how valuable it is. Reminds me of the story where they were digging for gold, and I think there was some sort of mineral that they were throwing off to the wayside because they thought it was garbage, and then I think this mineral that they were throwing on the wayside, I think, became as valuable, if not more valuable than gold. I can't remember what mineral it was, but anyway, what were we talking about? Oh, we were talking about. Let me make myself little again. We were talking about trapped in a mirror. So she was trying to draw who she really was. She was trying to capture that, and that's a hard thing to do, because if you know what Jesus said the light of the body is the eye. And see, going back to what competing for your attention, whatever gets in your eye is what you become. Jesus said, if the light be in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? He's not trying to say that. He's just trying to wake humanity up and let them know that what you allow to enter into yourself becomes you. And he even said that. Eat me and drink my blood, which he's referring to word and spirit. Now, most people don't value God's word because they don't understand. Like, for example, I've heard the audible voice of God twice in my life, actually audibly spoken. And I was about 20-some years old, and it took me 40 years to realize when he spoke to me how wise it was. And it took me 40 years to realize that he knew everything about my personality, everything about my psyche, everything about the way I thought, everything about my mental. Everybody lives in like a mental matrix of their own, viewed on what they think, or what they choose to listen to, what's competing for your attention. That's a mental matrix that everybody lives in. I know this is kind of deep, crazy way of talking and thinking, but it is what it is. And what people don't understand is that words aren't just words. For example, everything in the universe is made up of a bit of information. And that information has a specific behavior and follows a specific law, right? And that's how you know it. Like in the Bible, it talks about knowing something, right? So everything in the universe follows a behavior and a law, right? And that's why God brought the law, right? He was trying to say that this is what's right. This behavior is what you are supposed to be doing. So he brought this law, but of course no one could live according to the law because Satan in Genesis infiltrated us. I don't want to get into how all that works. That's a whole nother story. But the bottom line is whatever you're drawn to, whatever you seek, is where your mind's going to go. And then there's another secret rule of how that works, which I better not give that one away. There's a secret on why that's important. People that are wise already know what I'm saying and where I'm going. Boy, I don't know if I should say it or not, because I want to write a book about that. But basically, I don't know if I want to give away that secret. Yeah, I better not. Well, there's people out there that know this stuff, but I'm going to present it in a way that is going to bring maybe more clarity to it. Or maybe people's already written the book that I'm going to write. But I'm going to do it more from a Christian perspective, which probably no one's written a book like that, perhaps. So I better just shut up and move on. But she's showing the image and she's trying to capture that. But unfortunately, we're chameleons. And what are we a chameleon to? A chameleon is someone that changes its colors. We're a chameleon, going back to this statement here. It says, who are we but the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves and believe. Because see, that's what's gonna, if you know anything about Christianity, you know that Satan created all evil by these exact words. He told himself a story, and the story wasn't true. He birthed the first lie. And Christians don't even understand this stuff. I'm amazed that Christians are so caught up in religion, they don't even understand Christianity. But I have the gift of understanding where information just comes to me. And I don't read any books. I haven't even listened to this video. But I already know what this is all about without ever listening to this video. Because I just recorded a video of my own. Oh, that's what I was going to do. I was going to show the video that I recorded. I just recorded this video. Called Our Image 2 days ago. It's called Our Image. Somebody gave it a thumbs down. That's too funny. It's too funny. I got 3 views. Wow. 3 whole views. But see, this doesn't deter me. Because I'm not even trying to promote this stuff. Matter of fact, I hope nobody does listen to it. Because I want to write some books before. And really put it in a more powerful format. Because this is just talking off the top of my head, and that's not the most powerful format. Writing makes you think and come into focus, and it can be way more powerful. So speaking off the top of your head is just, it's almost like, speaking off the top of your head is almost like, it's like thinking about all the ingredients I'm going to put in a cake and just kind of talking about them, but not putting them together and making the cake, right? Or making whatever recipe I'm going to make. It really doesn't become powerful to have all the ingredients just setting out. Until you put them all together, then you present it for someone to eat. So me just kind of talking in this format, just jumping around, is kind of a weak version of the actual product, right? So I'm kind of hoping people don't get what I'm talking about, that they don't listen to my videos. But it's hard not to share some of this stuff. But in this video here, I talk about how our image is formed, and it's just a quick, not even real deep thinking, just some stuff on the surface that I know without even going into deep thinking. It's just a video I put out there, and it's about this very thing. I just recorded this 3 days ago, and I've never listened to this video right here. But I already know this stuff. I've recorded about 10,000 hours of information, and I already know all this stuff. But I've never read any books. But it's a spiritual gift of understanding that I have. That it's just a gift. For example, God is in the Bible 4,444 times. And Jesus, who's the Word, is 4 letters. And DNA has 4 letters. And Jesus, who's the King, 4 letters. Cross has 4 points, And where was I going with this? I had a point I was going to make, and I just forgot what it was. Oh, the word gift itself is a 4-letter word. And it talks about gifts of the Spirit, right? A gift is a 4-letter word. And a gift, what is a gift? A gift is something God just gives. It's free, right? It's just like if you went to the bank and they said, well, today we're giving away $100 bills to start an account. Or, or we're giving $1,000, but this is worth more than $1,000, a gift from God. I could write 1,000 books. But the information just comes to me, and I already know this stuff that people talk about, even though I've read no books. And I've got 10,000 hours worth of tape recordings to prove it. I just recorded some stuff about some thing he's getting ready to talk about on my tape recorder yesterday, and I've never seen this video. But what people don't understand is how huge this is. Let me talk about it. See, I've not listened to this video. I've went about 3 minutes into it. It says, who are we but the stories? See, the stories goes back to that image video I just recorded 3 days ago. Our Image, it's called. And I was inspired to do the video based on, and I did it half asleep. I was supposed to be sleeping when I did it, but I woke up, couldn't sleep, and I made this video. So who knows how good it is? I don't even know. I haven't even listened to it myself. But I thought it was good when I did it, so I don't know. But let's look at this. Let me look at this through my eyes. Who are we but the stories we tell ourselves? See, that's a very interesting thing. Like, I always used to think I was a good person. And I used to, like I gave one time $15,000 to, so that kids in Africa could have food. Water, for water wells. And I thought, well, that makes me a good person. But that's not how it works. That's why I believe the story about myself. But that's not reality. Reality is how you treat people every moment of your life, especially when you're under stress. And that's where I'm just a failure. I'll be honest. But at least I know it. That's a start, right? when you're under that's a test of character. When you're under, like the job I'm at right now, it's a test of character. It's one of these Egypt jobs that I call, like for example, Moses in the Bible, his character got tested. He was privileged. I guess today when they talk about white privilege, well, Moses was privileged. All of the children of Israel were being drowned in his day and murdered, right? But Moses found favor. And the daughter of Pharaoh saw him out there and had compassion. So he was privileged, right? And then he was I don't know what would happen. I'm not a Bible theologian, but obviously he was going to be in a position of power in Egypt eventually. Maybe when Pharaoh died, maybe he would be either the top man or the top right-hand man. He was in a very powerful position, as far as I know. But his character was tested, right? His character was tested. And when he saw an Egyptian whipping one of his fellow fellow Israel Jewish brothers, he murdered the guy. So that shows what kind of character he had, right? He murdered him and hid his body in the sand. So that was a test of his character, right? And God is always testing our character, right? And I finally just woke up just recently. Like, I've lived in an ADD mindset all my life, which is really like living in the Matrix. Everybody's watched the movie The Matrix. And I don't know. I've been trying to wake up out of it. But even though I knew how to wake up, I just didn't do it. And it's waking up to awareness. And now, it might sound strange to you, but I lived in a matrix all my life. I shouldn't even be giving away such secrets. But I'm sure the person that wrote the Matrix probably was like me at one time, probably. Probably. So it's not like it's not known. But I'm amazed that people don't talk about it. That's what amazes me. And I even had a vision 40 years ago, vision/stream, where I was going down a road. These guys called the Full Business. I was like 19 years old, and I sent $500 to these guys called the Full Gospel Businessmen International. And I didn't send it to them because I expected anything from them. It was just I liked their cause. I liked their cause. I liked what they were doing. I liked their spiritual place that they were in. I thought, you know something? I'm gonna send $500 to them. And as a kid, I didn't have much money, but I had faith in God, and it's what I felt like doing, and I did it. And I didn't expect anything in return, but obviously they prayed for me, and I didn't ask them to pray for me. I didn't ask for anything. I just sent the $500 and went on my merry way, because I believed in what they were doing. And plus I had faith in God. I mean, just to show you what God had done within, some of that money I saved was really going to be for a down payment eventually for a house, right? But within a very short period of time, I had my house bought and paid for, and I was only 20, it's probably about 30 years old or so, and I already had a house completely paid off. And that's just what God did, you know. Of course, He used my dad and my inheritance to do it, but God has these things planned out. You know, when it comes to God, nothing happens by accident. I mean, I know this. Like, things do not happen, things are made to happen. When it comes to God, I've heard stories that God knows every penny that you're going to make. And I've even heard statements that if someone speaks in tongues, that you can add to your wealth 4 times of what you have. And that's just speaking in tongues. That's just one spiritual gift. But most people don't understand that speaking in tongues is you're speaking God's book or plan that He has for your life. It's His plan, His story, your destiny that He wants for your life. And most people don't understand that kind of stuff. Like, God spoke in Genesis and created things, right? But what we don't understand is that everything we think, for example, let's look at this here. Everything we think is creating the story of our life moment by moment. For example, whenever we focus on something, okay, let me show this real quick. Whoops. Whenever we focus on something, focus on what we want, accomplish what we want. Before you can actually produce anything, you're going to have a thought. For example, when they went to the moon, they had to have the thought, right? I mean, it sounds kind of stupid, but oops, wrong one. It sounds kind of stupid, but that's how if you really know how everything works, it works that way. You're going to have the thought, and then after you have the thought, if the thought sticks with you, right, you can reject a thought, right? I can't believe I'm giving away secrets of this nature. But if you reject that thought, then that thing doesn't happen, right? Another thought takes the place of that thing, and then that's what you do, because going back to stupid is what stupid does, right? You know, if a thought replaces that, then that's what you actually do. You know, an ant, for example, an ant can be, you see a man on Earth that has the brain power. I forget how much more brain power a man has than an ant. But you see ants very successful. And the reason they're successful is because of that principle right there, is that they're not distracted. They don't have a mind that, like us, that can have hopes and dreams and all of these things that we want in life, and then when you don't get what you want because you don't know how to go after it, then when you don't feel like you have the power to get what you want in life, whether it be a girl or whether it be a job or a career, or even like Arnold Schwarzenegger that talks about vision, how he had a vision and how he manifested that vision. And one of the ways that Arnold Schwarzenegger manifested his vision is he did not give up on his dream. He'd be working out and people are saying, "Isn't it hard to work out?" And he's like, "No," because all he could see was that dream. It stuck with him. Now that's what, believe it or not, that's what makes the difference between one person being successful and another person being a failure. Is does it stick to you? Do you ever hear the saying that what's the saying? Is it winners never quit? Now, there are some things in life we should quit, but then there's some other things in life that we should not quit. Because a quitter always loses. If you quit on something, like some guys has got the woman in their dreams because they never quit. Now, other people could say, well, that person's a stalker, right? Which they very well could be. But you got to know when to quit and when not to quit, right? And some things we should quit. But sometimes things that if we don't quit, they're just gonna, and we never let go of it. It manifests. There's a lot of things we need to let go of. And see, that goes back to what's competing for your attention, what I talked about earlier. The things that's going to stop you from being successful is those things that are competing for your attention. Now, Oprah, for example, she never had any children. You know? Because that would have competed for her attention, and it doesn't take much to offset a successful person. A small thing can offset somebody and stop them from focusing on what they want and actually doing what they want. So an ant is never offset. He's got simple programming. An ant has simple programming, and he doesn't stop doing the same behavior over and over and over and over. You ever hear the saying, it's not the person that gets a job the one and keeps a job is the one that shows up all the time? But I'd like to go a lot deeper on some of this stuff, but I'm kind of scatterbrained at the moment, just jumping around. But what can I expect? I'm not even trying to even put something out there, but I'm giving some valuable stuff away. What I'm basically saying is life's not as hard as you think it is. You can write your own story. You have the power to do that. Now, this saying here, who are we but the stories we tell ourselves, about ourselves, and believe? Now, that can be a bad thing. Remember, Franklin D. Roosevelt said, men are not prisoners of fate, but prisoners of their own mind. Now, this can be a bad thing. Who we are, but the stories we tell ourselves, about ourselves, and believe. Do you know in some countries they don't give kids the option of being, a janitor or to work at McDonald's? They just say to them, well, look, you got this to choose from. You're either going to be a doctor or a lawyer, or, that's the only choices they have. They're not given a choice. The kid's not given a choice to be anything but these big things. And I see people in the United States just wasting their lives. And I'm not saying everyone's wasting their life. I'm just saying some people they don't believe that they can become anything big. I mean, and that's just a classic example of someone like Donald Trump. Like, I've been analyzing how people think. I've been analyzing the way I think for about 10 years straight, just looking at it and trying to understand how all thinking works. And when I look at a person like Donald Trump, it's not hard for me to see why he's successful. People are mad at him because he can't spell. And he doesn't speak that well. I mean, he speaks okay, you know. But they say, well, I'm more intelligent than he is. But it goes back to the thing that they don't seem to get. You see, when you have a sociopathic type mind, you're not distracted. And then you produce. You're very focused on what you produce. You're not distracted. You're like the ant, the simple-minded ant that knows how to produce and does the same behavior over and over again. And then you got someone that's way more intelligent, and they're homeless. A human being has way more intelligence than an ant, but the ant has food. The ant has shelter. The ant's totally taken care of because he follows simple principles. And when I look at someone like Donald Trump, kind of what makes me mad is that he thinks he's better than other people. But he's not. It's just a way of thinking. That's all it is. And Oprah, look at Oprah. I don't view Oprah as very intelligent. Like, Oprah has all these experts on her show, and she is absorbing information from them. But the only thing that made Oprah successful is that she did a thing called keeping a diary. And what it did is it brought her life into focus. It was a self-reflection of where she would look at a day and analyze it, and then that would make her set goals. You know, it's like most of us are wanderers. Like, we have no compass. We don't know where we're going in life. We know we want to be happy. We know we want certain things, but we don't have a compass. So we wander through life. Like, people will go to a bar and sit there and have fun, and then they'll think that's, you know, their little spice of heaven, you know, hanging out at this bar every day and drinking, and it very well could be. You see, the thing Cheers was about, where people developed a church and a family of friends at a bar, and it replaced family, and I'm not saying even something like that could work and bring you happiness if the right elements are there, right? You know, the TV series Cheers was about something of that nature. So that something like that could work, but a lot of people just go there hoping for that, and it never manifests. All they do is get drunk, and then they go there to medicate themselves because they hate their job. They're like the Walking Dead. They're going through life because they have no real control about what they really want to get in life. So they're like the Walking Dead, and they're just going through the motions of life and going to the bar for a little bit of happiness because they don't know how to create, and they don't know how to go after what they really want. And when they have to try to go after what they really want, they failed, and they just give up. So a lot of people are just wanderers, you know. They have no direction. They just get in certain patterns, and they do those patterns. And then Franklin D. Roosevelt says, men are not prisoners of fate, but prisoners of their own mind. And a lot of the prisoners can come from the stories we tell ourselves, about ourselves, and believe. and a lot of that comes from your parents. Your parents give you a DNA. And, you know, some parents give the DNA of a person like a Barack Obama. It's only a way of thinking, to be honest with you. It's only a way of thinking. Or Tiger Woods, they programmed him at an early age to play golf. And everybody worships Tiger, but all it is early programming. It's like I wanted to be a tennis pro. I played baseball, and I was really good at baseball, and I probably should have went after baseball, but I got distracted when I was in my 8th grade, and right going into high school, I went after tennis, even though I did just started, but I waited. I didn't start it early enough. if I probably had the right teacher, I might have been able to maybe become a tennis pro. I had pretty good athletic ability. I had the athletic ability, but I would have needed a teacher to put me on the right track. And also I had something called attention deficit disorder, which was severe. So on the mental realm, I didn't have a chance in hell. Just on the mental realm. The physical realm, I had a chance, because I probably was every bit as athletic as a John McEnroe. But what John McEnroe had was focus. A totally different wiring of the brain, which is total opposite of someone like that has attention deficit disorder. He used more of a logical portion of his brain, where I used all of the emotional portion of my brain, and my focus could be destroyed very easily. So I didn't have a chance in hell of becoming a tennis pro. I had no clue back in the day that I had attention. I didn't even know I had attention deficit disorder until I quit a job, quit a really well-paying job back in 2008. And then I was listening to TBN, and this guy that was talking that had attention deficit disorder, and I kind of always knew that was different. There was something totally different about me than other people, and I knew I was having a hell of a time in life, but I didn't really know what it was. It was just the way I thought. And it sounds so silly, because I can change that behavior very easily now. And but I'm still very impulsive. That's why I'm sitting there talking about this video. I got triggered watching this video, just 3 minutes of this video, and I'm triggered. But it's a lot of the things that God has been showing me, and it's hard for me not to speak about them. He's been downloading information to me for about 40 years. And it goes back to the story where I gave $500 to the Full Gospel Businessman International. This guy named Demas Saran, I think his name was. And I didn't expect nothing from him, but they prayed for me. And in this vision thing I had, I was driving down a road in this dream. It started out as a dream / vision. And everything was completely, I was in a fog. When I was driving down the road, it's like I was asleep in a dream. I was like, everything was foggy. Then all of a sudden everything became crystal clear. It's like totally awake in a dream. It's like waking up in a dream even though you're asleep. You're actually half asleep in a dream, but I woke up in the dream, even though I'm still in the dream. And I'm totally awake, totally aware, seeing the road crystal clear. It's like all the fog dissipated, and I could see more clear than in real life. If you know anything about near-death experience, you know that when people go to heaven, they say that place is more real than real life. But that's how you can kind of know when something comes from God, when it's more real than real life. So in the dream, I could see, I was like, how? Like when I woke up afterward, I was like, how can a dream be more real than real life? But anyway, as I'm dreaming, the black of the night was so sharp. I just never seen blackness and night so crystal clear and sharp. And I could see so clear, it was unreal. See, that's what happens when you wake up from attention deficit disorder. Like the way I live now, like I'll have moments where I'm awake. I'm in awareness. And for me, that's not my norm. Even though I want it to be, I'm going to make it my norm eventually. I'm going to live in that realm instead of the Matrix, which I call the Matrix, the other world, the daydream world. But unfortunately, in this vision, after I was woke up, then I wanted to steer. Once I could see clearly, I wanted to steer. And one of the biggest things that we struggle with in life. Well, let me just finish the vision. So I woke up and I was still in the dream, and I got real close to the windshield, and I was trying to steer. Right, I wanted to steer, and I was in a panic that I might go off the road. once I could see. But when I was in the fog, it's like I didn't give a rat's tail. It was in the fog, and I wasn't worried about going off the road. But once I woke up, I was worried about going off the road, which, even though I could see 10 times, 1,000 times more clear, I was worried about going off the road, now that I could finally see. But that's what can happen. Like, I've never read the book because I was going to write my own book about this stuff. But I used to go to the Oprah forum, and everybody worshipped this guy called Eckhart Tolle that wrote this book called The Power of Now. And the reason it even caught my attention because I'd woke up, and then when I woke up, I thought, well, does people know about this? Does people know that you can be alive, but you can be asleep, like The Walking Dead, per se? Does people even know about this kind of stuff, this awareness? And I've seen it everywhere. I even have this book written in the 1950s laying around here where this guy was talking about awareness. They'd known about this way before Eckhart Tolle ever knew anything about it. And I've learned just by looking at Genesis that people lost their awareness in Genesis when they took on Satan's lie and his DNA, which really started as a story. Look at this. We are but the stories we tell ourselves. What did Satan in Genesis tell Eve? He told her a story. He told her a story about herself, and she believed it. See how all this ties together? People don't understand that Christianity... See, I've cracked secrets in Genesis that no man has ever cracked. At least I think so. I've never heard it. But I've cracked secrets in there, and this is more powerful than what you think. I shouldn't even be giving this input or even talking about this stuff. But all delusion, do you understand that delusion is something you can live in your entire life? You know, FDR said, men are not prisoners of fate, but prisoners of their mind. What is that prison that they're in? It's a delusion. It's a reality. God said in Genesis, where art thou? To Adam, after he shifted from one plane of existence to another plane of existence. And see, I know things that no one else knows. Not too many people know that Adam shifted into a different spiritual plane, and then when Jesus came, he said, "The kingdom of God has come unto you." See, he actually shifted out of God's kingdom. And see, it was a place where there wasn't even time. There wasn't even time in that place, and you have to look at some of my other videos. I talk about that. Because I had a revelation about time. But what Christians don't understand is that when Jesus came, he being the door brought the kingdom to earth, but even though we haven't entered into it, right? He said the kingdom of God has come unto you. That means it's a doorway, like a portal. Like, have you ever watched the thing called Stranger Things? There's a portal into darkness, right? Another dimension, right? They call it the upside down. Well, in a sense, man in Genesis entered into the upside down. And see, I believe there was two creations of man. One was keeping the earth, so it was being fruitful and multiplying. And then the other were like angels that didn't have any children, that were living in... The time didn't exist for them, because there's no time in the kingdom. Like Albert Einstein said, we live in a dimension of space and time, right? They weren't connected to that. They were in their own little portal connected to God. So when they sinned, they got disconnected from the kingdom. And then that's when time resumed, and they joined with the people who were keeping the earth. Then you see, when the sons of God saw the daughters of men, and they interbred with them, then you see their lifespan got cut down to 120 years, and you will soon see that that as we analyze DNA, they will find something in our DNA that they can untrigger that people will start to live 2,000 years again, like they were before they intermingled. So they'll be able to trigger the DNA eventually, and they'll be able to trigger it so that we live 2,000 years with no problem. And in some ways that would be a good thing, because like it took me, I'm 62 years old, and I'm just now beginning to wake up and live. And my dad died at age 70. So if I follow the same footprints as my dad, I have 8 years to live, right? And I almost did have a heart attack earlier this year. Quite a few times, almost had a heart attack. I got so bad, my heart got so bad that I couldn't even lay down without almost having a heart attack. And I had no hospitalization. I can't tell the whole story of my life. I'm not going to tell the story of my life, how I got in this position and place, but God, Jesus is the way, and He found a way out for me. And I didn't know the science. I didn't know until after it happened, but God led me to another job and saved me from having a job where the virus would have cut my job, put me in another job. And He kind of let me know He did it by His hand. Like He saved me. I can't get into all my story of my life. It'd take too long. But anyway, He got me in another job, and I was close to having a heart attack, and I was just taking it day by day, because I knew there was no one that was going to help me if I, had a heart attack. If I went and had a stent put in or whatever I needed, it could have been bypass surgery. Who knows? But I couldn't even lay down without my heart almost having a heart attack. It got that bad. So God led me to this other job, and this job was so busy I couldn't eat. So it triggered me into a thing called intermittent fasting, right? So, and then all of a sudden I noticed my heart started getting better. All of a sudden I could lay down without almost having a heart attack. I could go up and down stairs quite a few times, and it wouldn't bother me. I thought, well, what the hell's going on? The only thing I could think of, I worked in the medical field 20 years. The only thing I could think of is, this is, since I'm eating every 12 hours, this is like intermittent fasting. So I thought, well, let's see if intermittent fasting can help heart disease. And lo and behold, I type on the internet, and there it is. Intermittent fasting can help clean your arteries out a little bit. And it bothers me just a little bit every once in a while, but it's got a lot better. But that's even better than taking a drug, because I can lay down, I can get up, lay down, get up. It doesn't even faze me anymore. But I forget why I was even telling this story. I forget what I was even talking about before that. I gotta get off here. I'm wasting too much time. See, I get triggered so easy because I see so much. I was talking about how we should live. It's such a shame that we don't live to be 2,000 years old, because we need elders among us. We need wise people. I'm 60, and if I live to be 70 and I die, well, then what happens to all that knowledge? It takes a person a while to develop. Like Colonel Sanders started his thing, how old was he? It's a shame that we die. And it's almost a thing that Satan stole from us. But Satan kills, steals, and destroys. That's all he does. That's his fingerprint. And man shouldn't be dying at 70 years old or even 120. Now, Moses was in perfect health at 120. Well, let's see when Colonel Sanders started his... when did Colonel Sanders start his business? Okay, he started it at 65 years old. See, that's when you start really becoming knowledgeable. For example, Michael Jackson's dad, wanted to be rich and famous and all this stuff, and finally he figured it out, but it was too late for him, right? So he takes his kids and very aggressively forces them to produce what he finally learned in his older life. And he so aggressively did it. Let's make sure I'm still recording here. He so aggressively did it that he actually neutered Michael. There was this one guy that was on Joe Rogan that talked about he was going to be a fighter, and his dad was very dominant. And he was hunting squirrels, and he noticed that the male squirrels would rip the penis or the balls off the other squirrels. And he noticed that they did that because once they lost their testicles, they had no desire to mate, and that limited the competition. So what can happen is people, and this is something I need to keep in mind too, because I have a kind of a dominant type personality. But some people have to be dominant, right, in some ways, but you don't want to be overly dominant. Where you're ripping the dominance out of other people. You don't want to take that out of other people. It's like it's a lesson I need to really learn more. But that's what he did to Michael, and that's why Michael, he not only ripped the dominance out of him as far as his male nature, so it also ripped the dominance out of him even growing up and even wanting to be an adult. Why would he want to be the monster adult? Because he probably viewed his dad as a monster because he was so aggressive and so mean. Like if you look at the near-death experience of a guy named Howard Storm, not Howard Stern, but Howard Storm, Howard was a very dominant person. And then Howard found himself in hell, and he didn't realize that his dominance was evil. But that was more of a milder dominance than someone like Michael Jackson's dad that just was. It's an interesting thing, this dominance thing. It's if you know anything about evil spirits, you know that they're all dominant, very dominant. They dominate. Going back to this thing here, see, evil spirits will tell us stories about ourselves, and you can believe those stories. Because, see, Satan in Genesis got into us by a Trojan horse of types, and I don't want to get into the details of it, but once that voice is within you and it speaks, and you don't know it's not your own voice, you have to have a really fine eye of detail to be able to spot it. But it can be a dominant voice. It can be very so subtly suggestive that you think it's you. So if you believe it, then if you believe what it says about you, then Solomon says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And then God says about himself, I am what I am. And if you know anything about God, there is no darkness in him at all. Like if you look at the near-death experience of a guy named Ian McCormick, he hits for God and there's no darkness in him. He's just beaming with light. It's mind-boggling. Let me show just a little bit real quick. Just so you actually know what God is. And see, all life ideas that make us a better person come from God. They birth in our heart I've had attention deficit all my life, so I don't spell real well, but that's okay. Once I start becoming aware, I can start to learn to spell. But let's look at what God is
As my opinion didn't hurt your mind, I began to lift my face up to see the chest of the man. God is light. Words appeared in front of my eyes. God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all.
Let me tie that in that statement right there, because Franklin D. Roosevelt said, "Men are not prisoners of fate, but prisoners of their own mind." Now, what is it that makes them a prisoner? It's darkness. It's a way of thinking, going back to this. It's the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves and believe. Do you understand that that's your character DNA? That's your who you are. And then you're limited by that. Like, for example, people like Muhammad Ali. He would sit there and meditate and say, "I'm the greatest, I'm the greatest, I'm the greatest, I'm the greatest, I'm the greatest." And see what that does. It's actually kind of a spiritual thing, really. Now it's kind of a spiritual glorification of one's own self, but what it does is it drives out any darkness. Because Jesus said, "If the light be in you is darkness, how great is that darkness?" And that's really what Franklin D. Roosevelt was talking about. Men are not prisoners of fate, but they're prisoners of their own mind. And that's really what makes one human being successful, like an Oprah or an Arnold Schwarzenegger, versus someone that just stays. And I'm not saying being a housewife or a nobody is a bad thing. So let's not put it that way. But what I am saying is, because someone raising kids, that's a very valuable thing. You know, sometimes we don't value certain things, you know. So I don't want to put down anybody that's chosen something that seems insignificant. Because raising a kid is like probably the greatest responsibility and honor there is. For example, just watched a movie on Netflix about, what was that movie? Let me see if I can find it. I think this was in this movie. Let me check it out real quick. It's called The Queen's Gambit. Am I confusing my movies? I think I am confusing my movies. Yeah, I am. Oh, the other thing I was watching, it was a movie. Okay, that was the wrong one. The one that it was something I was watching about, and I didn't watch very much of it. Let's see if I can find it. It was about a girl that wanted to. That was a storyline about what was the famous investigator? Let's see. Oh, I can't believe it's not showing up in something I just watched. I didn't watch much of it though. Oh, it was about Watson. Who was England's detective Watson? Sherlock Holmes. There we go. The storyline on Netflix was about a girl that was going to be like a Sherlock Holmes' younger sister, that her mother, I guess, in that story, taught her not to think like a girl, right? And I only watched a little bit of it, but I could see the pattern of what they were doing is her mother was teaching her to think not like an ordinary female. It's just like Rose in Titanic. She was limited by what they thought women should think, So they were kind of building a prison for Rose that she was going to be stuck in and she couldn't break out of. But because she went along, she got to know someone like Jack, who was free of the system. Jack was free to be whoever he wanted to be, right? And to grow even stronger than a person like Kyle in the movie. Like, Kyle was actually weak compared to Jack, but he didn't view himself that way. He believed the stories, going back to these stories things. He thought that Jack was like a gutter rat because he believed the stories that rich people say about the poor. And a lot of people say the stories about that about black people. They said that black people, were a certain way, right? And then people in the South grow up and they, like in a movie, in Forrest Gump movie, they say, well, they seen black people going to school for the first time in the movie Forrest Gump. And then they say to Forrest, one of the guys says, in his total ignorance, in his total warped reality, he says to Forrest, coons are getting into school. And then Forrest just says, raccoons? Raccoons are getting into school? So you see how warped people can get in their thinking on how they view, on the stories that they tell. And this probably ain't even the direction this guy was going to go in this. I don't know what direction he was going to go, but I'm going in a different direction. But you can go in many different directions about what's said right here. Who are you but the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves and believe? I mean, there's so many different directions you can go on that. But the bottom line is, it's what Solomon said. Solomon said, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And that's why I was talking about Ian McCormick. Or even the daughter of Sherlock Holmes, or the sister of Sherlock Holmes in the Netflix special, where she was raised by her mother, and her mother was trying to show her not to think like a woman. She was giving her a gift of not thinking like a woman, and Jack gave Rose a gift in a different way of thinking to get out of. She felt like there were walls around her, and there were. It was these social, like Rose was imprisoned in these walls that said a woman had to be such and such a way, and it was the same of the walls that the black man was put in too, right? But anyone can, and those are the type of walls that people like Muhammad Ali broke out of, right? Because he wouldn't listen to that. He would only listen to his own voice. And he created his own story. Do you see what I'm saying there? That's the ultimate thing, is creating your own story. So Muhammad Ali didn't listen to the stories. He listened to a story that he told himself. But if he would have listened to the story of what white people of the day told him, he would have been just, a janitor. Muhammad Ali would have been a janitor, right? But he told himself a different story. He said, I'm the greatest, right? And he believed it. And he became, one of the greatest boxers that ever lived. Because he told himself a story. And it's really one of the keys to success is what you believe. Now, if you notice among society, people are always trying to tear down everyone. Like the media, going back to that thing that talks about what's competing for your attention, the media can brainwash the public and actually steal the election. And what's a shame about our country is that the news media isn't supposed to do that. Back in the day when I grew up, the news media was Switzerland. They didn't choose one side or the other. And it's really Fox News that started this stuff. They totally shifted to one side. The Republicans, thanks to Fox News, corrupted the news. Then the other news became corrupt also. And they're both filthy, dirty, and corruption. And they're trying to lead the country from the newsroom. They're actually, we talked about Russian collusion. The Russia doesn't need to meddle in the election. The news meddled in the election. That's not what they're supposed to do. The news is supposed to be in Switzerland. They're supposed to be neutral. They're supposed to put equal views out there and let the people decide. They're supposed to put the information on both sides out there in a fair way, in a truthful way, in an honest way. And they're not supposed to choose one side or the other, because if they choose one side or the other, then they are influencing an election and corrupting a nation based on their view. And that's not their choice to do that. And they actually pick what's presented to brainwash people by telling them the stories that they want to focus on. And they're not supposed to be just focused on the president. That's all they talked about, that and the virus. That's all they talk about. And they're not supposed to do that. The media should be sued by the government for. It shouldn't be right that they are allowed to do that, because they're brainwashing a nation. They're influencing an election. So who is it that should be bringing forth the truth? And what should be brought forth about a president? If in Kennedy's day, if people would have exposed him, his relationship with Marilyn Monroe, and if the news would have been stalking him like they stalk the president, and yes, I said the word stalk. I mean, you see how they act out in the audience. They act like piranha. You can tell anything by its behavior. Any animal in the animal kingdom, you can identify it by its behavior. So you see them out in the river of the audience. The president's up here talking, and they're out there, and they're all acting like. You ever seen piranhas hit the water when you throw a piece of food into them? They just hit the water and they just attack it like a feeding frenzy, right? So you see him when he finally points in their direction of them. You see, they respond just like piranha. Because there's nasty darkness in their heart. There isn't good in their heart. You ever hear the saying, "He that cometh with a word cometh with an agenda"? Well, their agenda is not hidden. And we've learned to accept this about the media. They do not have the right to be biased. They got the right, though, from Fox News that started this crap. They started this crap. Now they've corrupted the news. It's corrupt. It's garbage now. It's not worth listening to. And their sole purpose was they for whatever reason they didn't like Donald Trump. And I don't know the man enough to know. I mean, if they really want to get to know Donald Trump, they should do it in a fair way, you know? They should sit down and do an interview, uncut, and one-on-one that Donald Trump should pick someone to talk to. And their question, and let me say this also. Questions, you know a question, have you ever seen someone dissect a frog in high school? Well, a question is a probe. Now, if you're too dumb to know that, when you ask someone a question, that means you're picking an area of the frog to dissect. And you're expecting that person to open up their skin and show the thing in which you're probing. Because a question is a probe, no different than when you dissect a frog. And that's a very invasive thing. And people should have the right to share whatever they want to share, especially the President of the United States. If the President doesn't have a right, then who does have a right? Now, and that's a hard, I mean, who can judge such a thing? On what questions should be asked? You know, if you're going to probe somebody, you should have some decency. You know, if you go to a hospital to get probed, you know, to get something stuck up your butt, to look at your insides, you know, you got to sign a waiver off on that for the person to do that. You know, if they're going to probe inside your body or have surgery or whatever, and who says that what you probe on the inside of a person, as far as their emotions and their mental psyche, isn't just as holy and precious? It used to be with the media, they used to respect. But now that they think that they have the right to probe like a bunch of piranhas and just bite and chew and devour whatever they want to, because they think that they have the right to do that. But there's a thing called boundaries. You know, Donald Trump is building a thing called walls. There are boundaries that make up human behavior and nature. Now, if you say that there are no boundaries, well, then that means someone has a right to probe you. Because do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, right? That's the golden rule. And a lot of darkness can rise up in people. So let's look at the darkness. God doesn't have that. God doesn't probe us. Because he's not like that.
I thought God is light. Could that possibly?
I'm going to let you listen to this, and I'm going to take a little break. Because this is how God's nature is. And we were talking about darkness in people. There's all different types of darkness that can be in us. And I'm not saying that I'm good. Because I'm just beginning to realize how sick I am. And you can tell how sick you are by the thoughts that you have about other people and how you relate with them. The people you work with, you know, just by the thoughts you have by them. That's a real revelational secret of who you really are. Because you are whatever you think. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So that's really what... we need to wake up as a nation and stop living in darkness. I mean, we really do. Anyway, I'm going to let you listen to this. And even Christianity turned into darkness. Like Jesus went to the woman at the well, you know, and he didn't, even though she had had 5 husbands and was considered dirt by the Jews, they wouldn't even so much as talk to her. The greatest prophet that ever rose up in Israel, who was not only just a prophet, but the Messiah, to the point where Jesus said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. That's who Jesus is. came to this woman, a woman, and God Almighty in Jesus Christ said to the woman, it said that she had 5 husbands, but he didn't say it in a condemning way. There was no darkness in him. There's nothing but concern and love, and his goal was to win not only her, but the whole area to God, and to restore them back. As a shepherd that takes care of a sheep. So there was no condemnation when he said to her, you have 5 husbands. She was overjoyed that he knew her. That God, or a prophet, she didn't know that it was Jesus, God. She just thought it was a prophet, like an Elijah type or whatever. She just knew it as a prophet. And she was overjoyed that through God, who knew the woman, that Jesus knew her, knew about her life, the story of her life. Because what does this say here? It says, we are but the stories we tell ourselves. So she had told, she had a story. And the Jews actually told a story to her that she was a Samaritan, or she wasn't a Samaritan, or was she a Samaritan? I can't remember. It's been a while. But she wasn't, I think she was a Samaritan, I think. I could be wrong on that. It doesn't really matter. All that matters is that she wasn't a part of the Jewish nation. It was a part of the Jewish nation that had broke off. And I forget the exact, I'm not a theologian. But you don't have to be a theologian to get what I'm trying to say here, because that's not important. What is important that it was an area that was broken off from Israel and wasn't considered part of the Jews. They were separate, so they were thought of as as dirt, which can happen in our society from rich to poor, as you see in the movie Titanic. He viewed Jack as a gutter rat. So the bottom line of the story is that. The Jews thought of these people as gutter rats, just like Hitler viewed the Jews as rats to be exterminated, right? It was a story that he told, and people started believing that story, which is very satanic and dark and evil, because God said about the Jews that blessed are those that bless them and cursed are those that curse them. And we see what happened to Germany and the Jews and all that stuff. Or we've seen what happened to Germany. Because they did what they did to the Jews. Bad choice. But Satan was almost like an antichrist. Some believe that it was the Antichrist trying to rise at that time and come into trying to manifest on the earth, and it could have well been that time. And we might be heading for another time, because that's been, by 2040 it'll be 100 years, and it wouldn't surprise me if it by then goes in that direction. It would not surprise me at all if we have another Antichrist trying to rise up and manifest. But it wasn't time yet, so he didn't manifest, and a lot of people believe that it was Satan trying to manifest the Antichrist through Hitler. And but anyway, I'm just going to play this thing from Ian McCormick while I take a little break. And you can get a glimpse of God. And there's no darkness in him like us. Like men are any type of darkness in us can wall us in. Whether it be the darkness that views a black man as not equal to a white man or a woman. But you won't see condemnation. You know, Jesus, when he spoke to the woman, there was no condemnation. You'll see the same, this revelation in this near-death experience of Ian McCormick. You'll see God speaking to a human, and you'll see there's no darkness in him. And there was no darkness when Jesus came to the woman that, you know, was at the well. And of course we know that the scripture that says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever means anyone, believes in him, should not perish, but have everlasting life." So God gave Jesus, who's the doorway to the kingdom, so that anyone, whosoever. So anyway, let's just listen to a little bit of this and just see a little glimpse of God. It's an excellent revelation of God. Oprah in her series is always watching, who do you think God is? Well, this gives a better revelation than any that I've ever seen. So let's play this.
Be God. And in him there's no darkness at all. I've just come from darkness. Whoever this being is, he is completely separate from darkness. I see no shadow. I see no evil. Only pure white radiance. And he knows my name. Could it possibly be God that I'm standing in the presence of, talking to? I thought if it is, he must be able to see my spirit absolutely naked. He must see everything. I began to pull back. As I began to pull back towards the darkness of the tunnel, I watched a wave of radiance come off him. I expected it to touch me and literally catapult me back into the pit. But as this wave of light emanated forth off him, it moved through me, and all I got was love. The love was causing me to literally blubber. I was actually just blowing my eyes out. That I could feel an acceptance coming. I said, God, you can't love me. I've cursed you. More love. I said, I've committed all kinds of sins. I've slept around, I've taken drugs. More. As the love kept coming, I then literally divulged what I knew to be the most debauched things in my life. As the light began to open up, I became aware that standing in the center, I began to make out a man's bare feet. Around his ankles were dazzling white robes, garments, not garments of cloth, but garments of light. As I looked out and saw that, I began to lift my face up to see the chest of the man, and his arms were outstretched with dazzling white robes, as if to welcome me. As I looked, I knew that I was looking upon God. Such... You're just awestruck. You can't be prepared. You have no way you can be prepared to see this. I stood in absolute amazement. And as I looked towards his hair was white radiance. Out of his face appeared to be light billowing forth, literally permeating out of his entire face. You couldn't see the features of his face because the light was 7 to 10 times brighter than all the light I'd seen, and it was literally emanating forth from his face. I began walking closer towards him. I wondered if I could just see his face. I'll know who God is. As I got within a few feet of his presence, I began to place my face into the light. And it didn't hurt your eyes. It was like you could look into it. As I placed my face closer in towards his face, hoping I'd break through that veil, as my face did, he suddenly moved. I saw an opening in a circular shape like a window into eternity, or a door into eternity. As I looked through this, I could see an entire new earth open up before me. It was like I was standing on the threshold of eternity and I was getting a glimpse into it. As I'm looking, I can see grass with the same light and life emanating forth from it. I can see flowers, fields. I knew if I stepped on the grass, it would not damage it. The color and the energy and the life emanating from it. It was amazing. I see a river, a crystal clear stream, trees along its banks, rolling hills to the left. I look out to my right, mountains in the distance, blue sky, crystal clear. I'm standing there and I'm going, this is paradise. As I'm looking, I know that I belong here. It's like I knew I had been created by God to live here. I thought, why wasn't I born here in the first place? Why was I born on this earth? I knew I'd come home. I knew I'd traveled the world looking for that paradise, and here it was in front of me. I thought, I'm home. I'm home. As I started to move in, his presence came right back in front of me and blocked the way. He asked me this question. He said, Ian, now that you've seen, do you wish to go in or do you wish to return?
God, I'm not married. I've got no children. There's nothing for me to return back for. I don't want to go back.
As I look back, to my amazement, God showed me one person that had loved me. The moment I saw my mother directly behind me, I wept. I thought, I've just not only lied to God, but there is someone who loved me. And I thought, if I'm dead, and this is actually happening, and I step through into paradise, into the presence of God, will my dear mother have any idea that her heathenistic son prayed in that ambulance, repented of his sins, gave his life over to God, and God heard this young man and caught him up into paradise? I thought, my mother will think her son went to hell. I thought she'd get a telegram or a telex saying your son died last night. Would you like him shipped home in a box or a jar of ashes? I thought, if that happens, it could destroy her. She's suffered so much, she's lost her family. And I thought, how selfish would it be for me to step through and leave my mother to bury me and think I went to hell?
I want to go back.
I was instantaneously back in my physical form in a hospital with the doctor that had been working on me holding my right foot in the air with a sharp instrument like a scalpel or a knife prodding the base of my foot. I could feel nothing, prodding it like a dead piece of meat. I hear the voice of God interrupt my thought, and he said this, son, I've just given your life back. I went, what? I've just seen God. What's happening here? I felt an amazing power go through me. It was like a low voltage of electricity. I felt my entire body starting to feel again.
I just want to point out something. He said he felt a low voltage of electricity back 40 years ago when, before I knew I had attention deficit disorder. I was in this fog and I was talking about that vision. I don't know if I was talking about in this video or another video. I can't even remember. I just woke up. I just ate breakfast. I was drinking coffee. So I can't even remember if in this video or if it was another video. But I talked about where I was going down this road. Everything was foggy. Yeah, it was in this video. And everything became crystal clear. So what I didn't tell was that after I woke up, I could see this road in my... It wasn't just a dream, it was a vision. And in the Bible, the time it happened, I didn't know a thing about visions. I didn't even realize it was a vision slash dream. It was a dream slash vision. And I'm a person that's never taken any drugs. I've never even smoked pot before. And I've only had 2 visions in my entire life. Well, maybe 3. 4 maybe. Yeah, about 4 visions in my entire life. I haven't had very many. I can only think of 4. Yeah. But I could still see as I woke up this road, and it wouldn't disappear. And I'm like, well, how come I still see this road? My eyes are open, I'm awake. But that's a vision when God puts that in your mind's eye, which is really the heart. And he did the same thing to Peter in the Bible, and different people have had visions. It's just a way of communicating that God does. It's a big deal because the information is coming from God. So anyway, after I had this vision, woke up for 15 seconds, could still see the road. Finally, the vision dissipated, and I didn't think it was going to go away for a minute. I was like, how come I can't see my bedroom when I woke up? I was sitting up in bed, and all I could see was this road. But God just wanted to let me know it wasn't a dream. It was something from him. And it wasn't done yet. So I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, contemplating how can you see, when you wake up from a dream, how can you still see the dream with your eyes open? So I was sitting on the side of the bed contemplating that, and then electric shock came from above and went down through my body. And I didn't even realize this was in this video, but I just noticed that electric shock, exactly of what I experienced, went through this guy. And I didn't even realize that this was in this thing, in this near-death experience on McCormick. And on him, it brought him life. Electric shock healed, I guess, his physical body. But for me, it was the thing that I know everything that I know now. It was my attention deficit disorder, which is it was very severe, very powerful. So that mine was a healing of the mind, of waking up and making alive the mind, because you're dead. You're dead. You're like a zombie if you're caught in the matrix of life, of your own imagination and your own belief systems. That's why it kind of ties into this video a little bit about the story that you believe about yourself. Like Muhammad Ali created his own story. And really, when you wake up, you have the power to think whatever you want to think. Whereas if you're in the matrix, the program of your thinking is selected for you. And that's what makes the difference between winners and losers. And I can't believe I gave away that information, but I didn't really go into great detail on how it all works. But I'm a little amazed that I just... But people are in prisons and they can't see the prison. They don't know that they're in a prison. If you don't know you're in the matrix in a prison of sorts, how are you going to get out? How are you going to change your life? But see, this comes from your programming from your childhood. By the time you're 3 or 4 years old, you've already downloaded volumes of information. Your parents put an image in you. But they can continue to put an image as you grow. But even with someone like Michael Jackson, the reason Michael acted the way he was because his father put an image in him. And he so dominated that he infeminized him. That's why Michael, he took any of them, like this one fighter that was on Joe Rogan. I wish I could remember the guy's name. Oh, I think it's the guy that's going to fight Tyson, I think. I think it's the guy that's either just fought Tyson or that's going to fight Tyson. I think it's the same guy. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast, I think. I think that's the same guy. See, I'm not big into boxing. Even though it's something I'm interested in, I just haven't had time to watch much of it. More into mixed martial arts, but I think it's the guy that's going to fight Tyson. And he talked about how he had to get away from his dad because his dad was so dominant, because he saw squirrels in nature that they would just rip off the testicles, and he knew his dad would, if he stayed around him, his dad was so dominant that he would never become a champ himself. And that's what Michael Jackson's dad did to him. He so dominated him to make him what he wanted him to form, like clay, and make the image. In a sense, Michael Jackson was a statue of the image of what his dad formed, but his dad had no clue what he was forming. His dad, come hell or high water, wanted to form what he wanted to form, but he so dominated him that he infeminated him and made him that he didn't even trust adults, right? Because that represented power. So the only person he could connect with or have a relationship with kids, and of course he wanted love from his father, which his father didn't give him because his dominant, powerful personality. So he wanted that connection, so he ended up liking little boys, right? To get that love that he wanted to get from his father. Isn't that crazy? It's sad and crazy at the same time. But it is what people do, and they don't even know what they're doing. But he did instill in him the ability to become famous and believe in himself. Somehow he instilled that. So Michael Jackson became famous. I know when Michael Jackson was was on the Oprah show, Oprah viewed Michael as the predator because I think she heard the stories of him with the kids. And Oprah was abused herself. So Oprah, in her image of Michael Jackson, viewed Michael as the predator. But in all actuality, Michael was the one that was the victim that was so victimized by his father, so violated, even destroying his own manhood, that's why Michael was the way he was. But unfortunately, as Michael grew into an adult in some ways, but in other ways was still a child, as he grew into an adult in some ways, an adult is a sexual creature. And kids aren't. Kids can be sexual, I suppose. But, and I know to him that seemed rational and natural. But when it was for him, right? It seemed like the right thing, but childhood is a holy thing, right? It's a pure state. And you can't dominate or push yourself on anyone that's of a child type mind, especially kids, So he kind of became his father in a sense, even though he didn't want to be that. He even sung a song, I got to change the man in the mirror. Perhaps at one point he viewed that he needed to change, but there's some things that aren't easy to change. And that's your nature that your father gives you. His father had no idea the pot, the clay that he formed in this spiritual image that he made Michael Jackson. Now, he did make him a superstar, but it was at a price. I'm not saying, I'm not saying that Michael did anything to these kids, because only him and God knows that. And the kids that were, it kind of reminds me of this guy that would introduce people to porn, called Ed Powers. Back in the day when I lived in Sin, I used to like to watch amateur porn. And what was so dangerous about Ed Powers is that he made it so comfortable and natural, and he was such a nice guy. They would lure these 18-year-old girls into making porn, 18-year-old, 19, 20. They call it, they would, it was totally amateur. And it's kind of something they're putting out there that's going to be there for the rest of their life. But some people just make it so comfortable, because they're so nice that they lead people into major life-affecting decisions that they got to live with the rest of their life. And they don't think what they're doing, We've all done things of that nature. But anyway, I've only got it. I didn't even get to the 3-minute mark on this video that I wanted to watch. There was something else he said on here that was at the 3-minute point that I wanted to comment on. I need to jump off here. It was at around the 3-minute mark I wanted to comment on. Let's check this out. I need to watch this video. I've only watched 3 minutes and 30 seconds of it.
Because we have to solve all of these problems. We have to figure out where did we come from, why are we here, how to make life better. And once we do that, then it's going to tell us who we are.
Okay, this is what the other thing I wanted to comment on. And I'm going to answer these questions real quickly. Who are we? Where do we come from? Why are we here? And how do we make life better? I'm just going to briefly answer some of this stuff real quick. Who are we? Now, from a God type perspective, we used to be the sons of God in Genesis. Then we got introduced to Satan, who introduced a Trojan horse into us that spoke. If you know anything about Jesus, Satan didn't have a voice within him. The only person he could hear was his father. So who was he? He was in his father's image. Just like I talked about Michael Jackson was created by his father like clay and made the image of who he was. Who we are is a combination of, remember I said put it on the wall, I pointed earlier on this video, I said what's competing for your attention? Well, that's what's brainwashing you from the time you're a child, from the point you're in your mother's womb to this present moment. Whatever captures your attention is what you're going to feed on and what you're going to become. So in Genesis, Satan got an inroad into man, which most Christians don't even have a clue about. They don't even know what sin is. Buddha kind of knew, more than even some Christians. Buddha said, master the mind. God said to Cain in Genesis, he said, God said to Cain, he He said, you must master the sin in you. Now, Buddha, I think his last words were, master the mind. He didn't say, make me a god, make a god out of me. That's what people did in their own imaginations. Now, it was true of Jesus, but not true of Buddha. Buddha was someone who was struggling that became something. Jesus was something that was always something. And he was what he was. God said, I am what I am, and Jesus was what he was. But Jesus didn't have any connection with this inner voice that we think is our own, which is not. It's a Trojan horse from Genesis that entered into man. And I don't want to get into the details on how that works, but even to the degree that it's the stuff that God is trying to free us from, which can be anything negative. Now, we can impute thoughts like Muhammad Ali and say that we're gods. We can go to that degree and say that we're gods and that we're the greatest and be of that nature. But that's just another nature, right? That's a nature that Satan wants us to be like gods. But we can. But what's interesting about God is that he's trying to make us gods. He's trying to get us to be back to the sons of God. And a son of God thinks just like God, right? So in a sense, Muhammad Ali thinking he's great was true, but yet it was more the image of his own self-image than something that came from God, right? Because if he would have got the truth from God, then he would have saw himself soberly instead of making a god out of his own self, right? And of course, it kind of stank a little bit when someone makes a god of their own self. Like you see a Muhammad Ali type, and it kind of stinks a little bit, to be honest. The Bible says our best righteousness is filthy rags. Now, some people would not look at the stank that came from Muhammad Ali of all the self-glorification. And some people just say, well, look at what he did. He's a champ and all that stuff. But then if we're totally honest, and I'm a totally honest type person, it kind of stinks when somebody so glorifies their own self. And some people buy into that because they want to. They might have insecurity about being black, and they need that just like the Germans needed Hitler to tell them that they were the supreme race, right? They'd get defeated in World War I, so they needed a Hitler to come along and lie to them and say to them that they are the supreme race. They like that. So, and I'm not saying that a person shouldn't. It's just a very fine line. Like in the Bible, there was a man named Job, and he feared God. But where Job went wrong is he feared God to the point he attributed evil toward God. Now, there's a healthy fear of God because God is what he is, right? He's a God. If you look at the universe, you see galaxies that they thought were stars spinning away from everything. Now God did all that. And he did it by a seed smaller than a singularity. If you know anything about the Bible's so full of seeds, it's unreal. From Sarah's seed being resurrected that passed to Mary, that brought forth the joining of God's seed with Mary. You see the seed of faith that can move a mountain. You see the seed of manna, the bread that came down from heaven that looked like a little seed, a little wafer. It looked just like a little seed on the ground, and they made manna of that. You see seeds in Genesis as God speaks and says that your seed will have entered me with the woman's seed. And if you know anything about a seed, you know that a seed, if I have one seed, let's say all the seeds of the earth got radiated, but we just happen to have some DNA that was in a radiation-proof container but every seed in every human got radiated. That means every male became infertile. All the DNA in their sperm, let's say, got destroyed and could no longer produce. Every woman's seed got destroyed. But we just happen to have, in a container someplace where this radiation, let's say there was a solar storm and it just destroyed all of the seed in everybody. Even though this wouldn't happen, but let's say it didn't destroy our DNA, but it somehow destroyed our seed DNA, and we couldn't have children anymore. Every time someone had children, it just came out as some freaky creature because the DNA got altered by a solar storm of not a solar storm, but what's that other phenomena that can happen? I forget. I'm not a scientist, so I forget the exact term, but I guess if it's a direct shot of a solar storm, there's something that comes off that. I forget what it's called at the moment. But some people that know science will know what I'm talking about. But let's say all the seeds got radiated except for one place. So that one seed could restore the entire human race. I mean, everyone would die except for that one seed. But from that one seed, all you have to do is take it and put it in a woman's womb, right? If it was one seed, and then the human race could potentially survive, right? It probably would have trouble coming from one stock, but the human race could be spared and grow into the billions and millions again eventually. So a seed is a powerful thing. It's something that can be propagated into infinity. So that's why a seed is such a powerful thing. So we see God, the universe, being these seeds that came from this thing that was smaller than an atom called a singularity that created the Big Bang. And we see these galaxies fleeing away from the Big Bang. But we thought they were just stars, but those are complete galaxies just like our own. And if you know anything about Star Trek Next Generation, they only explored a little tiny bit of our galaxy in their big warps faster than light, I guess. And they only explored a little quadrant of the galaxy, you know. Just one galaxy. They're not talking about leaving the galaxy. I guess in one episode that I think they did leave the galaxy or something. But just the space in between galaxies is so big, you couldn't even begin to go hardly from one galaxy to another very easily, because it would take millions of galaxies in space just to go from one galaxy to another galaxy, and they're all fleeing from each other, so how would you ever catch it in the first place? So it's just kind of mind-boggling that, okay, so I think the point I was trying to make, that God is what he is, right? So if you look at someone like Muhammad Ali in this spectrum of the creation of God just making the universe, you see that Muhammad Ali is not really a god. Even though people think of him as like a god, but they want to believe he's like a god, right? But all Muhammad Ali did was take a seed of a word, which in John chapter 1 it says, talks about the word, and it says nothing was made without the word. So Muhammad Ali became great by taking a word, and the word was, I'm the greatest, right? And he said to himself over and over again, and he manifested that, right? He became, as Solomon said, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So he broke out the prison of what the white man said about him. And that's in a sense, that's a good thing. But unfortunately, we always make gods out of people, whether it be Buddha. Now, like I said, there was only one real person that you can consider God, and his name was Jesus, and that's a fact. Because I've seen him in a vision, And the Bible says no man speaks like this man. But when I saw him in a vision, I've only had 4 visions in my life. And when I saw him in a vision, I saw him, and I thought, well, this ain't a man. This person has more depth than any man. I knew he could read my mind, and I knew he knew everything about me. And his intelligence level was just off the scale compared to any human that I've ever met. He makes Bill Gates look like nothing. I mean, Bill Gates is nothing. But you're talking about someone that knows everything. And I understand that by the spiritual gift that I have on the things that I talk about, because I've read no books. How can I speak? How can I know things this guy knows? And I haven't even begun to even talk about this. I could write 1,000 books on just this guy's, just on what this guy's talking about. I could write 1,000 books, even though I've read no books. And I've not studied anything about the Bible. I hardly even read the Bible. I read it back when I was younger a little bit. I don't read any books. I don't read any writings of any books. I do listen to Sid Roth a little bit. But then when I listen to it, I get expansions of information, just like the universe expands. I just start seeing all kinds of things, and understanding comes to me that goes over the understanding of anyone that's teaching it. But that's just a gift. So as far as who are we, it goes back to Genesis as far as the image that Satan put in us. Then we were at a place where we lived in the now moment. There was no fear. There was no worry. Like, you can look at this song called, it was written by Incubus, called Drive. The guy talks about going through life with open eyes and not being driven by fear. See, fear is darkness. That we just got finished singing the near-death experience of Ian McCormick. You can be driven by that your entire life. My dad was raised in the Depression, and he had this fear of being he had to wait in bread lines just to eat. So his entire life was driven by this fear, and even screamed at us kids at times. If we opened the refrigerator door too long or used too much toilet paper, and he would scream at you. If you opened the door and you were letting out heat, he would scream at you, because that was wasting pennies, and that was driving him back to potentially being in that bread line. And see, I didn't understand that as a kid, and I never walked through the pain that he walked through, right? And a lot of us don't never understand other people, why they do act the way they act. But he was driven by that his whole life. Every day he woke up, it was about saving and making some money. Every day. And it was good, and since he gave me an inheritance, and I didn't appreciate the money. And if you don't appreciate money, you can blow it very easily. You see a lot of people that win the lottery, and they just next thing you know, they're broke, because they don't have a value of money. They don't understand what it represents or what it can do, the freedom they can buy. Like, it's freedom never to work again, and to do what you want in life, which can be to explore things like these videos. It's freedom to expand yourself, like you see in Star Trek Next Generation, where they're not worried about, feeding themselves or jobs. It's all about self-improvement. And the mind is a powerful place to be. It's a place that you can expand in such greatness that anyone can become president of the United States if they continue to improve their mind and expand the way they think. There's no limits to what the mind, if orchestrated properly, can accomplish and do. It's a very powerful thing. It's memory can be improved just by thinking a certain way. I can tell people how to do these things, but I don't want to give away too much information. But even the flowing of thoughts, your intelligence level can rise just by knowing how to work your thoughts in a certain way. I don't want to give away too many secrets here. But who are we? Well, we're whatever's competed for your attention. You are what you eat. If I go to school because I want to become a doctor, well, that's competed for my attention. Something drove me to want to do that, which could be even an evil thing. Or let's say I want to be a doctor because I like the fame of it. I want to be viewed as important. And that's, everybody wants to be valued, but then some people love it, like the scribes and Pharisees in the Bible. They love the attention of being called master. And in some way, it's good to be a master. I'm not saying it ain't good to be a master, because that's in a sense what I'm doing. I'm teaching. I'm talking about stuff. And I even begin to be a master yet, because I haven't even done what I know. So I really should do what I know instead of sitting here talking about it. But the information has come to me, and I can't resist talking about it when I see the information that's already come to me, and people will start talking on the same things. It's hard for me to resist, because truth runs along the same lines. Everybody's going to see exactly this, pretty close to the same way when it comes to truth. It is what it is. So who we are is basically a product of all of the information that we've ever been exposed to, from the womb all the way to this. That's what makes up your character. And also choosing, as you get older, instead of things just being downloaded into you, then you reach a point where you start choosing behaviors. And some of the things are so powerfully programmed into us that they alter our destiny, and they actually lead us into destruction. Some things, what's scary is you can be programmed with, and like some things with all of your heart and all your soul, and they're actually contrary against God. Like someone in the mafia, for example, loves power. They love the fact that somebody fears them when they walk in a room. They love that. Do you understand that? Like when somebody walks in their room, they almost bow to them. They're afraid to say. They're very careful with their words. They have to make sure they don't piss off the boss because they don't want to die. But some people love that respect. They love that. You understand that? That's why they're drawn to that. That's why people watch the movie, because they love that with all their heart. They love being respected like that. But in a sense, it's nothing but pure evil to love. That's not, God is not of that nature. God doesn't force himself on humanity. You don't see God forcing himself on humanity, and because he has the power to do that. He could rip open the sky and look. He could rip open the sky right now, the atmosphere, and just kind of look down at us and speak in a voice just like he did when he answered Jesus. And then he spoke another time when the children of Israel were coming out of Egypt. He spoke. He could do that. He could wake everyone up, but you got to understand that when he reveals himself to us, he has to judge us. The angels had revelation of God. That's why they didn't get forgiveness of sins. So God could rip open the sky and speak to us. He has the power to do that. He can do it anytime he wants to. He can do whatever he wants. But he doesn't do that. He lets you move at your own pace. If you want to get closer to him, he'll let you do that. He just doesn't. He isn't pushy. He's not like Michael Jackson's dad, who pushed him to be famous, right? But he stands at the door and knocks. Jesus says he stands at the door and knocks. And if anybody opens, well, he's there. He's always there knocking. Now, you might be so far away from him you can't even hear the knock, but he's there. And it's interesting how different people try to seek him. That's interesting. That's a whole book right there by itself. But he actually made a doorway in John. He made doorways for us to visit him anytime we want, or even manifest him in this realm. And I don't want to get into all that stuff. I don't have time for it. So as far as who we are, God is this pure light that I showed in the revelation of Ian McCormick. And Jesus said that we're evil, and he's right. Christians think that when they get born again that they're not evil. But that's ridiculousness. If they weren't evil, then they could walk on water. If they weren't evil, they could pray, and everything that they pray, God would do. If they weren't evil, they could pray for anyone, and they'd be raised from the dead or whatever. That's the true test of where you spiritually are at. If they weren't evil, then they wouldn't speak evil things. And we can be infected by evil. Like, I'm very susceptible to evil. Like, if people do something to me, I'm very sensitive, so it sticks to me. And then I respond back with the evil that they did, and I send it back to them. And that's what I'm trying to grow, because only children act like that. You know, people are triggered by Donald Trump because they've been abused in the past, and it triggers them. And Donald Trump doesn't, does the president really have any call in the reality of your life? Not much at all. He can affect your life as far as some of the laws that are passed, but he doesn't even have the power to do much, because all he can do is sign bills. He doesn't create bills. And you really control people by the Oprah type response, where you're non-threatening, right? Because people just are sensitive, right? They're like me. The Oprah type, that before Oprah used to be very non-dominant, very open, very careful with people. And it was something that was very attractive to people. That's why she was successful and made $1 billion, because she didn't have insecurity. She was a woman, and she was able to speak and be honest about. She wasn't afraid to be honest about what she was insecure on, and she didn't lose her self-esteem by admitting that. So a lot of women were attracted to that, and a lot of people weren't turned off by Oprah. And that's really was the fact that made her successful, plus the fact that she was in a format that reached a lot of people. That means people could hear her word, the product of what she was producing, and they found it appealing. Just like, we go to the grocery market to buy food. And I'm not saying her product was perfect. Just like you go to the grocery market and you might buy, let's say you buy a smoothie drink that's already made, and maybe they put some sugar in or this or that. I'm not saying that Oprah's product was perfect, but it was something that people desired, right? And I'm not going to judge her product, because my product, what's been my product? My product in my life. Sure as hell wasn't anywhere near as good as hers. And in a sense, that's why Joe Rogan is so successful. He's just got $100 million deal on Spotify because his product, he doesn't have insecurity. And insecure people are just aren't pleasant to be around. Or even overinflated people like Muhammad Ali. I don't know who Muhammad Ali was in real life. He's probably very dominant. You know, probably in real life, if I walked up to him and had tried a conversation with him, he'd probably get pissed. Who knows how he would respond? It'd be interesting. But everyone has a certain way about them. And, as far as who we are, we are whatever we've taken into ourselves. And that's what's so dangerous about Twitter and Facebook and all of these things, is we're going to look to feed. Every person, what's competing for your attention? What is attention? It's what we want to feed on. Have you ever seen cows down on the eating grass? Well, human beings. Jesus said, "My word is bread." So everything that we do, everything we think, we're actually feeding and choosing that thought. And I don't want to give away any more secrets than that. I'm just going to say, Solomon said, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. The heart is where you, after you ate and you felt full, you liked it. It filled your stomach. So we eat things that fill our stomach, right? So that's who we are. And I got caught up on Twitter. I was a psychopath on Twitter, just to be honest. Kind of psychopath a little bit. I got caught up in this Democrat hating thing because, I mean, and beyond honesty, I'm an honest person. I try to be. The Republicans started all this crap. I used to hate the Republicans because they started this Fox News baloney stuff, and it's quite funny how it went 360 degrees is full circle, so it's crazy how I did a 180. And I used to watch The View. I used to love The View, and I think a girl named Elizabeth on The View is a Republican. I couldn't stand the Republicans, and I couldn't stand Elizabeth because she always sided with the Republicans without any. She always had something negative to say about Obama or somebody. And I was a Democrat when Obama was president. I was glad he was president. I was very happy with that. Totally 100% supported him. I think I even voted for him, I think. And I really like Clinton, too. Even though they've dug up a lot of dirt on Clinton, I still see good in Clinton, you know? And I'm not going to sit there and call somebody a rat or a or trash them, because and really the economy that Trump inherited was built by a lot of the stuff that Obama did. And to just diss it and say it's garbage is not right. It's kind of what needed to be done at the time, you know? And I'm not saying everything he did was good, but Anyway, I got to end this video. I don't want to be up all night making videos. Yeah, I've already done 2 hours. Let me just answer the rest of these real quick. I mean, these are questions you can't answer real quick. But we are whatever we mentally eat and believe. It goes back to that thing, whatever you believe about somebody. In the Old Testament, they used to take the sins, the high priest would take the sins and put them on animals. That means you took a label of something that you did that was a sin, that God saw you in a certain way, and it was removed. God no longer saw you in that light. The animal paid the price. But nowadays we try to put sin or labels on everybody, from the president down to old people. We trash the older generation. And I noticed that I got on this one chat room, and I noticed the younger people. If I was older, I was automatically a pedophile because I was older. That's how they viewed it. Anybody that was older was automatically a pedophile. All because some older guy in some movie they saw as a kid. See, that's a childish understanding. They see a movie about an older guy that was a pedophile or something, or I think there was some movie that was made where some guy was preying on and killing young girls, raping him and killing him or something or other, and that's how they see a movie, and then that's in their understanding. That's how they see all older people. They don't see the value of older people, the tremendous value and leadership of older people. They don't see that. All they see is that, because they're children in their understanding. And so then they become 18, 19 years old, and they get in these chat rooms, and so every older person is to them a pedophile. And it's just it's children leading other children. And it's the blind lead the blind, they both fall in the ditch. But you have that type of mentality, and it's disgusting. It's sick. It's so sick. But they don't see it as sick. In other generations, so who are we? Well, our movies in Hollywood, whatever we captures our attention, whether it be a movie in Hollywood, and these people that make these movies, like for example the movie American Pie, they show a clip of bestiality where one of the guys is behind the dog. I think it was I forget the name. It's been a while since I've seen that movie. Well, what was the guy's name? He's humping the dog, even though he's not really humping the dog. But the cake fell on the one guy's private part, so the dog's licking the cake off his private part, even though he's got his pants on and everything. And then it looks like, and he's trying to pull the dog away from him, and it looks like he's humping the dog. So, Hollywood puts forth this garbage. It's, crossing these lines of things. And then they feed that to our kids, and then we wonder why our kids, that's who we are. Becomes what they think. Because they're very impressionable. That means that things that they see stick to them. And some of the stuff never leaves them for their entire life, the way they view things. Because some people just never mature or grow. So who we are is any and everything that we come in contact with, that we end up believing, and then it sticks with you. And if you have a dark spirit, it's going to stick with you, or an immature spirit, it's going to stick with you. And the greatest thing of who we are is what happened to us in Genesis. Now that's why people get born again, because they actually start to begin to change who they are. Now Satan's interested in changing you as a Christian, so he gets involved in the church, and he has a spiritual DNA in the church that looks like real Christianity, and it's not. So he gets in the church just like he did with the scribes and Pharisees when Jesus came, and Jesus totally rejected the church, and the same thing is happening to the church today. Satan does the same games over and over again. So you have this fabric. You basically have two things that exist. Words are either life or death, and depending on what word we take into us is who we are, and then who you are is who also. A spirit is drawn to whatever word you take into yourself. It has access, just like a virus can access a computer and make an open door for someone to enter into your computer. Satan's word is an open door. If when you believe Satan's word, then it's like having a string. Let's say I'm a puppet, and somebody has a string around my wrist. Well, if the rope's powerful enough and enough force is pulling, it controls my arm. So what happens is when Satan gets you to believe a certain thing, when he controls your mouth too, and he can even control your fist. You'll swing and hit somebody based on what you believe. It's just like the guy that had the Trump hat on, the kid. He had no clue what the kid believed about Donald Trump. But he assumed that the kid believed a thing about Donald Trump, so the Indian guy attacked him. And you hear people saying, well, I just want to punch that kid right in the face because he was smiling. It was the kid that had the Make America Great hat on, right? Now, to Make America Great is not a bad thing. But people associated it with Trump, and that's just without even talking to the person. I've heard people, adults, say that they just want to punch that kid right in the face. And the kid wasn't doing anything. And the kid was smiling because how crazy the guy was acting. That's what he was smiling about. The guy was acting crazy. So he ended up, filing a lawsuit against media and everything else, rightfully so. Because then they used that, the media used that and made who we are. Who are we? They put that and they said that we believe that about this kid. But no one even talked to the kid to see what the kid actually believes. Yeah, I don't have time to answer all these questions. Because you could write a book about each one of these questions. I don't have time for it. I mean, they're easy to answer. Let me answer some of them real quick. Where do we come from? Well, my belief system on this is we came from Genesis. God created one people to keep the earth. The other were angels. The two merged. Their lifespan got cut down to 120 years. When they did merge, because the sons of God saw the daughters of men interbred with them. Because their DNA mix, they got cut down to 120 years. Then we emerged from that. And God changed the actual DNA by resurrecting Sarah's seed, which was passed to Mary. And then Mary's seed was joined with the Father's seed, which brought Jesus, which gave us the born-again experience. And who's Jesus? Jesus is a word, right? And a word that enters into you. On the day of Pentecost, they saw fiery tongues, and those tongues spoke. The fire represents burning out the lie that we got in Genesis from Satan. That's why they're fiery. And the tongues represent God speaking again to man. As you see a disconnect in Genesis, when all of a sudden God's speaking to Cain, who killed Abel, and then all of a sudden you see a disconnect, God stopping speaking. Because man became sinful because of what he got in Genesis from Satan, which began with believing Satan's word, which led to the knowledge of good and evil, which is a fruit that we eat. And a fruit is not only food that we eat, like I talk about we feed on things, you know. A fruit is something you eat, but it has a seed within it which has a DNA which changes you as you eat it. And you become in its image. And I just gave away tons of information. But that's who we are, and that's where we came from. Now, why are we here? Well, Satan wants us to be his bride of his word and manifest his works in this world. But God wants to manifest his works in this world. That's why one of the great things in the gospel is to destroy the works of Satan. And the works basically is his lies. For truth to reign in this earth. It says, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's what God wants to propagate on earth. So why are we here? We're here to propagate, like it said about Abraham. He said, you'll be a blessing to all nations. Now, if you look at the movie A Wonderful Life, you see a man that if his life was missing on... If he was missing, you see the void of that one man. And that can be true of great men that live. It can be true of anyone. We've all heard the butterfly effect of how small little things make big changes. The butterfly effect, we've all heard how that works, and it's true. That's why Jesus said every idle word that a man speaks, he'll be held accountable in the day of judgment. Now, unfortunately, when people like Oprah have a big forum, or Joe Rogan that has a big forum, and Joe sits there and says that Moses smoked pot, that was the burning bush. When he says stuff like that, not having any idea of what Christianity is. See, Christianity is, let me explain it, since even Christians don't even understand it. But I have the gift of understanding, and that's my gift, to explain these things to people. Even though I've read no books and hardly read the Bible. But let me explain how it works. Oh, Satan's trying to block me on this one. You don't want me to say that one. Oh. Boy, that was a satanic attack. I'm trying to block that. Anyway, Lord, help me to see that. Satan just blocked me. That thought he didn't want me to say that one. Let's see, I was talking about Joe Rogan and the burning bush. Oh. I got blocked on this one. Oh, gotcha. Boy, Satan didn't want me to say this one. But I got it back. Who's trying to steal it again? Okay, got it. Okay, now you can't steal it from me because I got it in my head. Phew. Nice try. I mean, I can sense spiritual things. When someone tries to just wipe your memory, that was a nice little try there. Satan has a little bit of power. He just tried to wipe my memory on that. He didn't want me to say this one. But the way this works is, Joe Rogan thinks that smoking pot and taking drugs, they enter into this DMT realm, and you have this this other drug they take, ayahuasca, and they're trying to fulfill their spiritual paths, but they need something to enter into a spiritual place, right? But the spiritual place they're entering to, and since they're not born again, if you're not born again of that spirit, then what plane are you going to enter into? Huh. You're not going to enter into God's revelation. Now, let me explain to you how this works. When you get born again, it's no different. It's an internet connection. Think of it as an internet connection. Remember I said there was fiery tongues that spoke? Now, if you're not connected, you want to be connected to the internet, right? So Joe Rogan, who just got $100 million on Spotify, he wants to be connected to spiritual things because we all crave that intellection, that depth, and that understanding that goes beyond our own understanding. When they take these drugs, they can write music and do different things because it opens up their spirit to the realms. And even Eve in Genesis was given information that she didn't have about the knowledge of good and evil. But of course, after getting that, it just made it all hell on earth for us because we judge by knowledge of good and evil. We judge everything. We judge ourselves. And that even goes back to the question of who are we? We've become the most judgmental, crazy, berserk, crazy people on the face of the earth. From judging, does an immigrant have a toothbrush? Judging every little thing, that's all we do. It's wrong because an immigrant doesn't have a toothbrush, but yet we don't judge the fact that our own people in LA are homeless and they don't have toothbrushes, and we're not even taking care of our own. Like, for example, the national debt. We're on a path of absolute destruction. I worked in the medical field for 20 years, and you can't tell me this country isn't on a path of destruction, utter destruction, and it's got to be stopped. And we're going to go to let's just go to the national debt clock, just to show you what's really going on. National debt clock. This is like blood. This is the United States going $1 million in debt every 30 seconds, I think. I think I timed it once and it was like 30 seconds. Maybe it's sped up since it should have slowed down a little bit if Trump would have been able to do what he wanted to do without this virus that I believe came from China. It was CRISPR created, I believe. I don't know that for sure, but that's what I think. I think it was by design, just like John F. Kennedy said, things do not happen, things are made to happen, and it can easily be made to happen. Very easily in this day and time. That's what's so dangerous about the day and time we're living in. They've got CRISPR, and you can make a virus and release it and destroy a country very sneakily. Now, they were destroying us. China already had us set up for destruction to take us over by the national debt. So when Donald Trump came along and started to stop the bleeding of the national debt by making it harder for China to steal us blind, China didn't want that because that destroyed their plan. So they had to come up with an alternate plan. And the alternate plan was, well, we'll still destroy the economy. We'll just make a virus. Our scientists can do it, and we'll just use that to do it. And it's going to probably come out eventually that China deliberately did that. Give it time. But I'm sure that it was deliberate. Look at all the sixes on down here. Wow, I don't like that. Whew. I don't like to see 666s. Well, but anyway. So going back to what I was talking about, I can get off topic so easy. going back to what I was talking about, China wants to be a world power, and it's on its way. And I like the Chinese people, I really do. I'm not so sure I like the government of China, but the Chinese people, they're not a bad group of people. I like them. Now the leaders, are very dominant, super dominant. That's the difference between communism and, a country like ours. You have to be dominant in some areas, You have to give people freedom. That's what our country's about. But China isn't, very dominant. That's what makes an aggressive country is dominance to the point they'll murder you. Now I'm sure the same stuff happens in our country. If somebody comes up with an invention that might wreck the economy, well, that person dies, right? So the same stuff is, we have the same type of evil stuff going on in our country, but people killed Jesus because they wanted to save the nation. So people kill other people in the United States. It happens. If they don't want you here, it's like it's like they didn't want what was the guy's name? Epstein here, and no, the media is not screaming about that. We should find out who was responsible. The news should not let that go on who killed Epstein, because it was somebody in a very powerful place that was connected to that and didn't want to be exposed by him talking, so they had him murdered. But the media doesn't give a damn about that. And I'm amazed they're getting away with it in this day and time. Someone will eventually expose that also. So it's all very interesting stuff. But we're basically here to propagate God's truth. That's why we're here. We were put here by God. Satan entered into us to propagate his. So going back to this thing that Satan didn't want to talk about, how is it that Joe Rogan thinks that he's trying to have a spiritual experience to these entities, and people that take this ayahuasca stuff, but they're not born again, so they enter a realm in which these spirits there, these spirits don't want them to know what they are, but they're in a dominant position because that's their world, and they're only going to let them see what they want them to see, just like the governments and politics. It's a powerful underworld government of spirituality. So you got these people, that seek this spiritual experiences because we still have our spiritual being that wants to connect with God. So they connect to the dark side, just like you have a dark side of the internet. They're connected to the dark side of this stuff by drugs, and so Joe Rogan thinks that we're connected. I gotta get off here. I can't waste all night making videos on my day off. So Joe Rogan thinks that that's how Moses connected to God, which is utter ridiculousness. But he can only speak from his own experiences. But what happens when you get born again? You get a sensor. See these right here? This is a sensor for me to be able to see, right? Without these, I can't see. Now, man has built 1 million different types of sensors. He's built hearing aids, he's built binoculars, telescopes, Hubble's telescope, microscopes, infrared scopes. he's built all these different types of senses, but all they do is sense things that he can't sense. Everything that he builds is to explore the secrets is by sensors, right? And then the other way that they sense things is you have to be able to see it, and then you have to name it, then you have to know its behavior and what it does. So that's what science does, whether it be an electron or whatever. It's got to learn the behavior of something, whether it be gravity or whatever. It's got to get to know it. That's why Newton was so different, is he got to know gravity. He just didn't accept gravity. Oh, gravity's my buddy. Gravity does this. Gravity does that. Okay, but he got to know it, just like Einstein got to know space and time. He really got to know it a little bit better. Just like if you get to know God a little bit better. But what Joe Rogan doesn't understand is that when you get born again, you get a sensor. And what does this sensor do? It's like getting a sensor. Like Hadron Collider is nothing but a big sensor, right? Everything that we build, a lot of things we build are sensors, right? So when you get born again, you get a sensor. That's what Joe Rogan doesn't understand. And this is a guy that got $100 million deal to talk and share his knowledge. And he doesn't even know anything about Christianity. He only knows the realms he's walked in, from comedians to Hollywood to this and that. And he's a very rounded, curious guy, and he's got money to be able to continue to be curious. And but he doesn't know anything about real Christianity. He doesn't know a thing about it. He just believes what he believes. So of course he wants to have a spiritual experience, and so he's going to start believing in these gods. You know, you get $100 million deal. He's really going to believe in these gods, and they're luring him in. And I like Joe probably more than anyone, and I think God has a plan for his life just like everybody. And probably big plans, and that's why Satan's kind of luring him into this direction to propagate the stuff that he says. But Joe puts out a good product that people want, right? I love to listen to Joe Rogan, one of my favorite people to listen to. He's the voice of a lot of reason and soundness, and I love to listen to that. But that doesn't mean he's perfect, right? And he's more rounded and better person than me, and I'm supposed to be a Christian, right? But I lived in a blind spiritual world all my life. That medically you call it attention deficit disorder, but it's a spiritual thing, and I don't have time to get into all that. Maybe I'll write a book about it. Plan on it probably, but you get born again, you get a sensor, and then you start sensing God and these things. And I tell you what, I've seen a lot of stuff. I mean, if you want to see what people sense that get this sensor, I recommend going to sidroth.org. Going to television. And then going down here and clicking on, and I don't get any paid endorsement from Sid Roth. Going down, I get nothing. I have no connection with Sid Roth at all, other than I do support his ministries with my money because I believe in it, because it's the best Christian teaching in the world that I know of, through revelation of these interviews of other Christians that have experiences like me. And many of the Christian experiences I've had similar experiences. I think you just had a guy on. Well, I don't want to blow your mind with some of the stuff, but like all you gotta do is click down, view more episodes, and he's done interviews that he's got listed on here so far, and he's done more interviews than this. But he's slowly putting all these interviews that he's done for 40 years. I think he's done about one a week, sometimes, at least recently, more one a week, because he does an interview with one a week. And they go all the way back to 1997 that you can view on here. And these are people that have the sensor to sense into God's realm and speak about these things. And probably the one I recommend if you want to watch one first is a chick called Jennifer Toledo. Watch that. There's a lot of revelation there. There's so much revelation here. I mean, I could just talk about this stuff and write books about this stuff. But go to this one, Jennifer Toledo, 2009, and listen to that one. This one's very powerful, especially for someone that knows about Christianity. It's very powerful. But this will blow your mind. This kind of stuff, this will blow your mind just to listen to that. But you can start with that one. Now, if you don't have a sensor and you haven't had these experiences, if you haven't had God do things in your life, well, you might not believe this stuff. It's just like, because Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead. If you're not born again and you didn't get a sensor and you can't sense this realm and get information from this realm, and then it's going to seem stupid to you. It's going to seem like it doesn't exist. But with me, like this guy right here in Glimpses of Eternity talked about this electric shock. Let's just use this for an example. Because I had this one 40 years ago where I had two electric shocks go through me. So let's listen to this. And this guy ain't even associated with Sid Roth, but I've heard it on the Sid Roth show on many occasions, people talking about this electric shock. It comes from God. So let me just finish my story. After I had the vision and I saw the road, going down this road, and everything became crystal clear, and I wanted to control and steer everything, which is what all of life is about, is trying to control things. You want control over your own life, whether you're Muhammad Ali or whether you're Whitney Houston that takes drugs that wants control over her mind, or Carrie Fisher that got electric shock therapy because she wanted to have control over her mind. But the very reason Carrie Fisher didn't have control, because she wouldn't let go of some things because she wanted to have power over them. But she tried to have power in a stupid way, like a chimpanzee that reaches his hand in a jar and can't pull his hand out. So she would get stuck in her ways of thinking, and she couldn't free herself. So the only way she could free herself was take electric shock therapy, and then she could function as a human being in this world. She had to erase her memories. And pot, which Joe Rogan smokes, does kind of the same thing. It has a receptor in which it makes you forget things. And just to tie this in with Christianity, what does the blood of Jesus do? God no longer remembers the sins against you. So we live in a day and a time where back in the high priest used to take the sins and put them on animals and remove them from people. We live in a day and time where the media and everybody else wants to put sins on people, from the kids that want to say adults or pedophiles. Everybody wants to label and put sins because that gives them what? Power. If you can label someone else, from Hitler labeling the Jews as rats, then they had power to destroy them, right? So everyone wants to put a label, whether it be the N-word, as far as a black person. And now the black people are putting labels on white people. They're doing the exact same behavior that they hated that was done to them. They're putting labels on white people. And they think they have a license to do it. And it's funny, behavior people do when they think they have a license to do it, right? But I don't want to get into all that. That's another can of worms and topic that I'm not even going to get into on this video. But after I was sitting on the edge of my bed, after having this vision, after these Full Gospel Businessmen International prayed for me, and I didn't ask them to. I never even told them that what happened to me after they prayed for me. But obviously some of them did. So I had this vision, and I had it was a dream/vision. So then 2 electric shock came down through me, and then a little voice after electric shock came through me, a low voltage electric shock like Ian says here. After it went through me, a voice came to me, and it was very subtle, almost you would think it was your own, said to me, that didn't happen. And I believed it. I thought, well, maybe I just wasn't awake. I'm sitting here on the edge of the bed. I was probably 20 years old or whatever, 19, 20. Yeah, that's probably about 20 years old. That'd be about 42 years ago. And sitting on the edge of my bed thinking, maybe after that little voice spoke, and it was just a demonic force that didn't want me to believe in it happened. So after it spoke, and I heard it, even though I didn't realize at the time it was a demonic voice, I just thought it was my own internal thinking. But now as I look back at it, it's like that wasn't me. And I'm not a person that hears voices. I don't hear voices. Plus, I'm somebody that's studied the mind for 8 years, and I'm going to write maybe New York Times bestseller books about how the mind works. This is all very simple to me. It's real simple after getting the understanding that I have. It's so simple. It's just all so simple. To understand the mind and how the mind works, and it's just all so simple. It's all so simple. So after I believed that voice, then God seen that I believed that voice, so he sent another electrical shock, and it went through me. And then at that time I was like, okay, I know I was awake on that one. And I was actually awake on the other ones. The voice convinced me. It made me believe that maybe it didn't happen because I wasn't awake. But then after God hit me with another electric shock, I was like, okay, that happened. So let's look at this one where Ian had this electric shock go through him. Because I've seen this on the Sid Ross show, I've seen it here. But this is the kind of stuff that happens when you connect with God. Somehow that has to do with his power, exactly what the electric shock does. It's some sort of healing type thing.
What? Did I just see God? What's happening here? I felt an amazing power go through me. It was like a low voltage of electricity. I felt my entire body starting to feel again.
So he said he had a low voltage of electricity go through him. See, I had that happen to me twice after that vision, after the Full Gospel Businessmen International prayed for me. And that was something that was big a long time ago, about 40 years ago. I don't even know if Full Gospel Businessmen International is still going, because Demas, the guy that started the thing, died. So, I don't even know where it's at in this day and time. But I'm a product of their prayers, of all the revelation, the gift of understanding. I think that electric shock was the gift of understanding that came to me. Because that's when I started to have understanding. So it was a spiritual gift that was given to me. And even explaining how Christianity works, it's a sensor that comes from the gift of understanding. It's a sensor that you get. And Joe Rogan doesn't have that sensor. The only sensor he has is a drug-induced sensor where he visits a realm, but he's not born again, so the realm that he's visiting is that's not God. That's not God's realm. Now, God could enter into that realm. I should pray that God does. But that's his sensor that he uses. So he, of course, is finding spirituality, which he isn't even finding God. Now, some of these guys say they bumped into God in these drug realms, but I know better. Because when you get the real thing, when you get born again, you know the difference. Jesus says that his sheep know his voice. So we can tell the difference. We know. It's not hard. But I don't want to get in too much more of that, so I got to wrap this up. I've been up for 5 hours, and all I did was watch. All of this came from just watching 3 minutes of this video. Now, how do we make life better? Well, by connecting to God and actually getting truth from Him. Because you're going to appropriate. Jesus said this: if you abide in me, you can produce fruit. Now, fruit is a food and a seed that duplicates itself. No different than if I had 1,000 wives, like Solomon did, and I take my DNA and I impregnate them, well, I'm going to duplicate myself. So our words, faith comes by hearing. So we duplicate God in this realm by speaking. And God isn't what most people think. And I can't claim that I know everything about God, because that's impossible. But what I do know is he gave Solomon wisdom, and he wants everyone to have wisdom. He wants everyone to have the gift that I have, the gift of understanding. The word understanding is in the Bible more than faith and more than grace. Let's go to that real quick. I didn't even know what gift I had until this guy, I watched this video, and he's the only one of the few people that has that gift. There's a couple of the people that have the same gift that I have. This guy's named Shane Wall. But he has the gift of understanding. He also has the gift to be able to see angels. See, that's just a sensor that God gave him. That's all it is. It's a big deal, but it shows that God trusts him a little bit more than me. Because if you start seeing in the spiritual realm, if you continue to sin, you're in big trouble. Because the angels didn't get forgiveness of sins. When they came out of Egypt, and God showed all the revelation to them, there's a point where they continued to sin, and God said, I will blot them out of the book. And I could never understand that until God gave me the understanding of it. He said, because of the revelation they had, I had to treat them more like an angel, and I couldn't give them forgiveness of sins because of the revelation. So I'm glad that I do not see. The way I see the spirit world is through the gift of understanding. And I'm glad that I don't see angels, because I went through a season of sin, and I still don't feel like I'm totally over it. And Satan, what sin does, if people don't understand that, sin changes you into its image, then you love those things. And it's powerful. You love these things with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. I mean, you love these things. And it's like the addiction. I've never really been addicted to porn. Even though I wasn't addicted to sexual type things at one point in my life. Like I used to go to strip bars and things of that nature. I used to watch porn. And I guess I was a little bit addicted to it, but I was more addicted to actually wanting to have sex for a season. And but what it really did is it gave me peace of mind. Like, since I had attention deficit disorder, people with attention deficit disorder, like the boy in the bubble in the hospital, any little infection can make them very sick. So they have to be in a bubble. So my spiritual, mental life have an attention deficit disorder. A lot of people There was a young girl that committed suicide that had attention deficit disorder. I see that the guy Chester Bennington, that was the group of Lincoln Park, I see him as someone struggling with attention deficit disorder. I can see it in his music, the way he talks about how he views reality. I can see the attention deficit disorder of someone living in a matrix that they can't escape out of, which I don't want to get into it too much. But if you can't escape that matrix, then life becomes hell based on the matrix that you enter into, because you don't know how to get out. But it's not that hard to get out of the matrix. I can teach people, and I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to give away these secrets, but I can teach someone in one day. Like my sisters went to a therapist for 20 years that I know of, and I don't see any change in her at all. Now, I can teach someone in one day how to change their entire world. Of course, they got to be suffering with the like thing that I suffered with, and everyone does to some degree. I can teach you in one day how to totally change. I can teach one person one day how to become successful. Of course, you got to do it. Knowing it isn't stupid is what stupid does. So you still have to do it. Knowing it's not good enough. Knowing it is nice, but it's no different than a person that has a lawnmower out in their garage and they don't use it when they go out to cut the grass. Cutting the grass represents reality of what we do in life. So a lot of people that fail in these type of mentalities think that knowing something is powerful when it's actually using it and doing the so-called work of implementing it. But I don't want to give away any more secrets than that. But this guy talks about understanding. It's the most powerful thing there is that I know of. Speaking in tongues is also powerful, but I'm not going to talk about that right now.
Angelic activity, angels, heavenly places.
Understanding the unseen on every day.
So that you cannot
Check to Sid Roth, Roth.org.
Now, how can I do? We begin to lean to our own understanding. And the Word of God says, lean not to your own understanding. Whatever God has spoken, He has already put all the thought needed into what He has said.
Give me your best definition of understanding.
Understanding, Sid, is revealed insight.
Okay, let me explain what understanding is, because it's easy to miss this stuff. Truth is evasive. You know, like everybody knew that gravity existed, but only one person started to see the value of gravity. And that's another secret right there. If you don't value something, it's worthless to you. It's not going to work. You have to implement it, like I was talking about. So understanding is finding a truth and valuing it, just like this saying on the wall, stupid is what stupid does. Or even Nike puts a slogan, just do it. There's more power there than what you realize. Because people dream, but then they don't build the bridge to the dream, right? And doing is where the rubber meets the road. I mean, we really have to be careful what we do, because it goes back to, for example, spending time. Like right now I'm spending time, and I got to stop here. I'm going to stop here in about 4 minutes at 4:44. Because it is it's 4:40, and I'm going to stop in 4 minutes at 4:44. And just to prove to you that I'm not lying, here's the clock. Let's see if you can see it. Here's the clock that says 4:40. Just so people know I'm not lying. Then I'm gonna stop around 4:44. Because spending your time, it's like if somebody gave you $200 a day to spend, you know, that and let's say at the end of the day, if you didn't use it, you lost it, right? So you'd go and spend that money, right? You no one's dumb, right? If I was given $200 a day, and if I didn't spend it, I lost it. I'd spend that money, right? I'd find something to buy, and then if anything, I'd buy something just to convert it back into money that I could use later, right? Well, I like that. Convert back. That's like E is equal to MC squared. Converting something back into something else. That's interesting. I like that. Conversion. Converting something that's a like substance. I like that little insight right there. So when someone says just do it, the moment is the only time that you're actually creating something, right? There is no other time. There's only right now. So most successful people have a plan for a day. Like me, I'm a complete idiot. I had no plan for the day. So I'm just a wanderer, lost. Even though I do have a plan. I was going to set my plan first before I started anything, but I watched his video and I got caught up in it, and now I'm making a video of my own. But it's stuff I'm interested in, and I got to resist. The rest of the night, I need to do the stuff I need to do. But that's where reality's made, in the moment, and that's when you spend that time. So that when you're doing something in the now moment, that's when you actually give birth or create something, right? That's where you bring something alive. You bring it into this existence, into this realm. You're pulling it from out of, in a sense, nowhere into now. See how powerful that is? By a thought. So see how powerful word is? Jesus, who's the Word. Do you see how powerful that is? You have the power to pull something into existence right now. And the only time you can do it is right now. That's when it's done. And that's a very powerful concept. I hate giving away too many secrets, but and that's, people don't value the time that they have, because they don't realize that that's when you pull things into reality. Your dreams, the things you dream about, you pull them into reality, and then always in the now moment. So if you're going to have a goal to reach something, it happens in some now moment that you pull that into reality. And it happens right now. So just do it, or stupid is what stupid does, is really writing the story of your life. You have the power to write whatever story you want. And it always is happening in the now moment. And that time that you spend is so critical. Like, for example, there was an episode on Star Trek Next Generation, how Picard, who got stabbed in the heart, Q showed him what his life would be like if he never got stabbed in the heart. So he viewed that as a foolish event that happened when he got stabbed in the heart by this Nausicaan. If you're familiar with Star Trek Next Generation. But what that did is it made him value the moment. It made him value his life. It brought everything into focus, which is the now moment, where you create things. So because that incident happened to him, he valued life more, because his life almost got taken away. So he was born again, as far as born again in valuing the now moment. And it showed that changed the whole destiny of his life. He took more risk. He was more bolder because life was more important to him. And it changed his entire life, and it showed the pattern of where he, just like if you look at Einstein's space and time, you see two different realities going on the space and timeline by these curvatures of how they reach, of how, if you could go at light speed, how these different timelines of things can happen on the relativity of what people see. And so your relativity, I think there's a secret here somewhere, but I don't get time to think about it, but I'm seeing there's something here that I'm talking about that might be more powerful than what I think it is. At least that's what my gift of understanding is saying, but I don't have time to fool with it. But see how it creates, I don't have time to go that deep in that type of thought. But see how the small changes in the now moment reach into the future and totally change the course of your history or your destiny. It all happens in the now moment. So Picard, as he went through time, Clue gave him a glimpse of what he would have become like if the Picard that he would have became, that had no passion for life, that just became a simple, I think he was a lab, I forget what he was. He was a nobody. No one valued him. Nobody thought highly of him, and that can happen to any of us. And the thing about God is, God wants you to reach that full potential, and you do that by understanding. That's why understanding is in the Bible more than faith and more than grace. The Bible says, without vision, my people perish. So understanding, that's why understanding is so important. The Jewish people didn't know that their Messiah had come. And they got beset 2,000 years. They actually murdered their own Messiah. So it's crazy how that through lack of seeing and understanding, they didn't know when he showed up. The wise men did. And that's why understanding is such a powerful gift.
Only God can reveal it, and that's what makes understanding supernatural. That's why God said, in all thy getting, get understanding.
Excuse me, there's something that jumped out at me when you said that. Do you know what God says? Not in some of your getting, in all of your getting.
So I can watch any of these shows and see things that no one else can see. What you have to define here is getting. We're all chasing something like a dog after a stuffed rabbit around a track. That's the thing you're trying to get. And we're so foolish in what we do. I mean, I can look back at my life, how I spent the last since 2008, and it's just pure insanity, foolishness, waste of time. But in a sense, some of it was necessary to grow my self-esteem. So some of it was good. Because you can't have a fragile self-esteem. So I guess even the bad that happened was good, and the fact that it grew my self-esteem. That I don't feel intimidated by anybody. I don't feel intimidated by presidents. I don't feel intimidated by doctors. I don't. There's no one in the world that intimidates me. And the only person that I look up to is Jesus, because he's the one in which this gift of information comes, and I don't have to read books or do anything, and I have understanding. And I'm just kind of giving you a little surface information of what I can actually produce. This is just a sample. Now, when I really think and go deep, that's what I'm going to do when I write my book. So I'm just kind of giving little surface stuff here right now, just little free samples. But I haven't even begun to even start thinking deep in the way that I can go and see things. I mean, I'm just giving you little samples. I'm not even trying hardly. I'm using it a little bit, but it goes way deeper than this. I mean, it can go deep, and the understanding, there's no limit to it. When it's a gift, and anybody can get this gift. Anybody can get the gift, or at least it's available. I mean, you got to. Anyway, let's not get into that. But in all of your gettings, we're always chasing something. But if you get understanding, you, of course, having understanding and not using it is worthless also. But understanding teaches you to use it. See how it understanding teaches you to use it. Now, if you have it and you don't use it, well, then it does you no good. Just like faith without works is dead. Because the works is where the action of the faith is in producing something. Just like knowledge without using it's dead, faith without works is dead. I don't want to get into too many Bible secret things, but the Bible ties in with all truths. And I don't want to reveal too many secrets here, but let's play a little bit more of this and then I'm going to quit.
Yes.
Get understanding. How do you pray for understanding? How do you recommend we pray for understanding?
Oh, Sid, just as Jesus taught us in Matthew 6, when he taught us how to pray, he said, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, before give us this day our daily bread. So we have to ask the Father. Here's the situation. Ask the Father, how do you want to handle this? What is your understanding of this situation? I want to see what you see.
Do you see what he just said there? He just did an Einstein type prayer. Do you see that? Well, he just didn't. Do you realize that that's the same thing that Einstein said? Einstein said he wanted to have the thoughts of God. God has a plan for everyone's life, a destiny, a place of honor, a place of wealth, a place of riches, a place of fame, a place of purity, a place of prosperity, a place of blessing. And Satan is the opposite. He kills, steals, and destroys. He doesn't want you to have anything, because if you have those things, you're going to give glory to God. Plus, you're going to be blessed and happy, and you're going to share not only your wealth, but your blessing to other people. So he opened up and said, what's your understanding on my day? What do you want me to do this day? So he opened a door to God being a father, which he is, because God's a father, right? We can be sons and have fathers in the real life, but this is a father that is good. Now, a lot of us has had fathers like Michael Jackson I talked about. His father pushed his will on him and shaped him in the image he wanted, but then he destroyed a part of Michael in doing it, right? But God isn't that way. God's a good God. God isn't that way at all. You're talking about someone that we just seen in the near-death experience of Ian McCormick, of how that there's nothing but goodness there, nothing but light. There's no darkness. So when you open up to this, to the Father on your day, you're not only opening yourself up to someone that cares about you. You're opening yourself up to someone that can see everything that's going to happen in your day before it ever happens. That has infinite wisdom. It's just like going to some people would go to some wise person to get some advice, or some people actually go to fortune tellers, which unfortunately is demonically ran. That's like not very smart. But let's not get into that. But you have a God that knows everything, that sees everything, sees you, sees the next step you have to take, that cares about what step you're going to take. So asking him, when you wake up, do you see the key he just revealed there? Let's play it again, because that's, and his understanding is he understands everything. Like, imagine a country that had a president that did this, that was actually led by God, that opened himself up to God, who can see everything, all the evil. God could even see the virus that I believe China made. He would give a president the heads up. There's nothing, we created this thing that what's his face tried to destroy. What was that guy's name? They just made a Netflix special about him. Who was this guy? The guy that didn't want the United States to be eavesdropping on everyone. I know his name, but I can't think of it. He's on Netflix right now. Let's go to Netflix. Let's see, watch it again. Where's it at? Okay, let me think. Oh, I hadn't watched it yet. There was something they recommended me for a watch, and I haven't clicked on it yet. Trending now. It's probably here. It's Snowden. So Snowden wanted to block the United States from being able to eavesdrop on everybody or get into everyone's business, because he was afraid that I had Netflix open twice. What the hell that happened? I didn't know you could do that. But Snowden didn't trust the United States to use that information right, and they probably don't. Right? But they have to have it to protect themselves from, like, 9/11s, right? Because they got to know what's going on. So God has the advantage that he knows every person's thoughts in the world. Plus, he already. Another thing that was on. Oh, let's go to Netflix. Let's use this one. This is a good example, also. A lot of Christians wouldn't think this movie is worth watching, and they would probably condemn it. But oops, that's not Netflix. But I see the value in it, and the wisdom and the understanding in it that's very powerful. And it's a way of thinking. It's called Basic Instincts. But in Basic Instincts, she knew the character of everybody before they would do it. She predicted the future based on a person's character. Like, if you know somebody's character, you already know what they're going to do in the future, and that's exactly what she demonstrated by her understanding. She did that by understanding character. And if you know the things that I know, like I was going to write a book called Spiritual DNA. DNA speaks, and you could control anybody, really. And I can see the brainwashing that's happening, in the country. It's so simple. It's all so simple. But you can actually control the destiny of a country or a person just by knowing their character and their behavior. Now, if a president really knew God, you ever seen a chess game, where people have these chess games and they seem invincible? God is always going to win in the chess game. Always, always, always going to win. Now it doesn't appear he wins because he lets us play the chess game, right? We get to choose and make moves in life, and we lose. We get checkmated. I got checkmated a couple times in life and should have been killed on more than one occasion. Satan checkmated me, and it was checkmate. I had 3 guys that put a gun, or 5 guys that beat me half to death, and they put a gun to my head and were going to shoot me, and it was game over. I was checkmated by Satan. And I'm still here. Then I was almost checkmated again, almost had a heart attack, but I'm still here. And so Satan's always trying to checkmate every human being alive, and countries as far as that go also. Satan's trying to checkmate every human being. It's a chess game for him. And imagine a president that had God's understanding and could make moves based on that. That'd be really interesting. Now, Trump, I don't think reached into that. He kind of was heading in that direction, but another interesting thing, that presidents are elected 4 years. Remember, it said God's in the Bible 4,444 times, in this nation re-elects presidents every 4 years. Very interesting. What country does that? Some countries just, like South Korea, they're cursed to have the same person running it. Now, that could be a good thing if he was a good man. If God can get a hold of him and change him, it'd be a good thing. But if he's evil, then just like in the Bible, certain kings devastated Israel at times. But I forget what I was talking about now. I was playing a little bit of this about understanding.
Once we get his will on earth, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, then we know what to ask for, that daily bread. So I need your understanding so I know how to pray. So that is how we get understanding. And you know what's it? We never have to ask God, will you give me understanding? I've searched the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. Everyone who got understanding, they literally requested it. They said, give me understanding. The word of God, give me understanding, and I shall keep thy law. Yea, I shall observe it with my whole.
See, let me explain this. Oprah, for example, created a New Age religion because she didn't have understanding. So she created not only the own network, but her own religion. And it was from her own image, right? And I can see where a lot of the direction she's going in is even better than Christians in some ways. So it's not like you can just throw her out, just throw Oprah out of the picture and condemn her per se. Because the Christians have some things in them that are owned by Satan, that's in his image, right? That's a spiritual DNA that they can't see. So, but if you get what is understanding? It's truth. Who's Jesus? He's the truth. Now, when you get the truth, that's something you'll hold to if you know it's the truth, right? You'll grab a hold of that. And he says, "Yea, I shall observe it with my whole heart." Because if you know something is true, you're not going to do something else, right? If I know that I grabbed for if I'm a child and I grab for something on the stove, I know, and I burn myself once, I'm going to observe, I burn myself once, you're not going to have to tell me not to do that again, right? So because I get a thing called understanding. And I tell you what, I've been burned hard. I walked into sin, and boy, I found out just how Satan has legal right to kill, steal, and destroy in your life. And I've been burned hard, and unfortunately, some of the DNA, as you eat of these things that are of Pandora's box, you're changed into that image, and you actually desire those things with your whole heart. But if you keep getting burned by them, then even though you desire it with your whole heart, see, these are demonic things that have to be cast out of a person. And I definitely have some of that stuff in me. Because if you love something with all your heart, then you're a puppet to it, So that's what's interesting. If you eat of Satan's stuff, and it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's for power, like Kim Jong-un, he eats of what he does, controlling by fear and intimidation, because it gives him respect and power, right? And that's the only way he knows to do life, right? I mean, you can say you're not a Kim Jong-un, but imagine being put in that position. Imagine being thrust and born into that position, and then trying to protect yourself, the things you might start to do, right? A lot of people can sit there and judge people, but until they're actually put in that position, and then they get forced into making certain things and standing against certain people that are evil, especially if your parents raised you a certain way, you're already susceptible to that from that. So a lot of people judge him as a monster, but in reality, there's people that you work with that are even more evil in their heart. The only difference is they don't have the power. They're not in a power position, but they're even more evil than Kim Jong-un. But people don't see that kind of thing. I do. because I understand human nature. But anyway, yeah, I gotta get off here. We'll play a little bit more of this, and then that's it.
Whole heart. I cannot keep nor observe your law until I get your understanding. I can't minister in the gifts of the Spirit until I get your understanding. I can't have a successful marriage until I get your understanding. My business will fail, Father, if I don't get your understanding, which is the key and is the attraction to all success.
You know, people use the natural.
See, God's understanding isn't always our nature or the obvious. I think I've revealed a few things, but I gotta end this. I'm tired. And that was just triggered from watching this video for just 3 minutes, and I never even got to finish the video. But I don't know if I can. I get triggered, but I would like to listen to it. Let me put on my favorites. But now I'm tired. I need to retire so I can listen to stuff out there. And I need to write some of my own books. I don't want to take from anybody else. So let me just put on my favorites. Let me put on my mind videos. Yeah, I got mind videos. I haven't even watched any of I save them and I never watch them. I never read books. Sometimes I'll go through a video, but it triggers too much in me to watch this video. I never answered the question how to make life better. Oh, that's a book I'm writing right there. I can't even tell that secret. It kind of goes back to the spending of how you spend your time. Trump does it. I'll give that much. It's a Trump way of thinking. That's why he doesn't have to be that intelligent to be successful. And I'm not saying Donald's not intelligent. But he knows. I don't want to give away any more secrets. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to end this. I'm tired. It's time to eat again and get a few things done around the house. I just woke up 6 hours ago and spent time with this video, and I probably shouldn't have, but anyway, it's time to stop spending. Well, anyway, I'm done.